Chapter 345. Herluz was a grey-bee pugilist, and Shattering Light was a set of super equipment that was tailor-made for him, allowing him to unleash his pugilist strength to a greater extent. There were many devices hidden in the gaps of the armor that converted energy. The turbulent flames spewed out strong winds, and shock waves spread out on the ground as he moved. Grey-bee pugilists started to reach the level of the Sun family, and it was easy for them to release shock waves with their bare hands. Pugilists who had passed the early stages were basically human-shaped firecrackers, exploding wherever they went. Herluz's combat power was not to be underestimated even in the Shattered Star Ring. The commander-grade armor was top-notch equipment, and its level was completely different from that of the enlistee and NCO classes. Together with the battleship's slicing blade that increased energy, Herluz's combat power was shocking. The thick blade released shock waves, and the ground was turned upside down. The difference between the top-notch combat power and the enlistee was too big, and there was no need for anyone else to interfere. Herluz spun the battleship, slicing blade like the wind, and his agility was far greater than that of the king-hunting beast. The king-hunting beast could not escape, and blood and flesh flew everywhere. Herluz's godlike performance ignited the passion of countless soldiers instantly. The commander-grade armor that had disappeared for so many years had appeared again. Who is this armor user? All kinds of questions appeared in the minds of the Sunils. The commander-class armor had a very special status in the Sunil race. Many people knew that this was the embodiment of the strongest individual combat power of the race. It was almost like a totem. Herluz's appearance awakened the dormant memories of all the Sunils. All of a sudden, their morale skyrocketed. In gaming terms, all the Sunils received the All Attributes Increase buff. Han Shao watched the show from the side and nodded. Herluz was very strong, even far stronger than him. Herluz has started to make his move, which means that the Sunils are starting to enter the storyline that I'm familiar with. Han Shao thought. With his little butterfly wings, Herluz's actions should deviate from the original storyline. It was just a matter of whether he had a chance to abduct him. The particle cannon fired twice, killing the heavily injured mountain beasts and lava lizards. This kind of weapon was a conventional weapon used by the advanced civilizations in galactic wars, and it was an obsolete one. With the Sunil's energy technology, they could only burn low-grade energy. Even with the many restrictions, it was still powerful enough to be used as a killing weapon to defend the main city. During the charging period, Herluz successfully killed the king-hunting beasts and started to roam the battlefield. With his armor and energy protection, he was not afraid of being surrounded by the beast horde. He swung his battleship's slicing blade and was unparalleled in the beast horde. Herluz alone could not stop the entire beast tide, but his role was undeniable. The soldiers in this area were able to catch a breather. In Blue Star, a Grade C super could fight an army head-on, and Herluz's grade was one level higher. Even if the beasts at the end of the catastrophe were very strong, he could still handle them with ease, especially since he was a pugilist. Individuals with extraordinary powers were more agile, like sharp blades. At the same technological level, the difference between high-end combat forces and war troops was only in terms of quality and quantity. A powerful individual could become an army by himself. Herluz jumped and moved, becoming the focus of the battlefield. Looking at his figure, the soldiers felt like they were filled with energy. The situation gradually stabilized. This wave of beast horde ended without any danger. Just as the military was excitedly wanting to contact this mysterious person, Herluz's body flashed, ran into the forest, and disappeared. It was obvious that he did not want to expose his identity. Herluz was conflicted. Contacting the military meant that his peaceful life in the past would no longer exist. He would have to walk the same path as Furnaz and the others, becoming the guardian of the race. Although it was his choice whether to do so or not, Herluz felt that he would definitely not be able to stay out of it by then. Furthermore, the upper echelons would definitely ask him to hand over the commander-class armor for the race to study. Herluz saw it as Delphi's precious legacy, so he was conflicted. Although he stood out to protect the race, and the sense of responsibility that had been sleeping in him slowly woke up, A strong person would not change their personality overnight. In the last few days, Haluz was conflicted about what to do while showing up to help. The military had been investigating his identity, but every time a battle ended, he would leave quickly and remain mysterious. A few days later, the whispers in everyone's mind suddenly disappeared, and the tide ended. The beast horde that was still attacking suddenly paused. Countless beasts woke up from their killing instincts, stopped running, looked around in confusion, and then scattered in all directions. The beast horde then disappeared. The catastrophe is finally gone. Han Shao exhaled. The soldiers laid down exhausted, unable to move. Their bodies had reached their limits. The surviving warriors were too tired. The logistics team cleaned up the battlefield, dragged the sleeping soldiers out of the armor, and moved them to the infirmary one by one. The army was resting. Seeing the battle situation on the broadcast, countless people in the city cheered. Every time a catastrophe ended, it was like surviving a disaster. According to tradition, there would be a celebration a few days later to thank the army for their contributions and mourn the martyrs who had passed away. This kind of ritualistic celebration was good for building the cohesion of the race, relaxing the tense nerves, making people laugh, shed some tears, and get rid of some negative emotions. Once again, they would feel that there was still hope in life. However, this time was different. An hour after the catastrophe ended, Furna's face appeared on all the televisions in the streets. "My people, I'm Furnace. I believe many of you know me. I would like to make a statement. From today onwards, I represent 40% of the supers, the guardians you all call, to announce that we are leaving the Sunil race and will never return," Furnace said calmly. His words were very firm, indicating that they had done their best and were now going to pursue freedom, no longer working for the race. The Sunils felt like they had been hit by a freezing rain. The joy and enthusiasm of surviving the catastrophe were all frozen. They were all stunned. What's going on? Why so sudden? The upper echelons of the military were shocked. They did not know about this at all. Far away in the forest, Haluz saw Furna's declaration through the built-in terminal of the armor. He could not believe it and mumbled, "Why didn't they leave quietly? This way the people will..." As soon as the declaration came out, the entire Sunil race was shocked. Their minds were in chaos and confusion. They did not know the reason, only that the guardian they had always relied on was going to abandon them. Why? Why? Therefore, no one was silent. Collapse, disillusionment, despair. Cries, screams, roars. This was the collapse of their beliefs. Even the minority who were dissatisfied with the supers felt endless panic when they saw this. The entire race was shocked. Furnace appeared with the supers who had decided to leave. They walked out, and the Sunil soldiers looked at them in disbelief, but they could not help but make a path for them. This time, another group of people, including Lurden, came up to them in shock and anger. The Sunil supers were divided into two groups. One group announced that they were leaving the race, and the other group was shocked and angry. The two sides stood far away, facing each other. The mercenaries who were waiting for the final payment all looked like they were waiting for a good show. Han Shao leaned against a tank and looked at this scene from the side. He narrowed his eyes and thought to himself, "It's starting." He had only heard about the split of the Sunil supers from rumors, but this time, he could see the real thing with his own eyes. The two sides were called the Independence faction, led by Furnace, and the Guardian faction that protected the race. "Why are you doing this?" A person from the Guardian faction was furious. Furnace glanced at him coldly and said, "I've already said it very clearly. Don't show such an expression. I know you guys have thought this way for a long time. After so many years, how many brothers have been sacrificed? How many brothers have been disabled? Because of this, we've already done our best." The expressions of the people from the Guardian faction changed slightly. Indeed, most people had similar thoughts before. Not many people could remain firm and unwavering. Furthermore, they had been in the colorful galaxy for a long time and had seen the temptation of the colorful world. Some people got rid of the desire to grow stronger, and some people let it take root. But Lurden clenched his teeth. "If you want to leave, you can leave quietly. Why do you have to make such a big fuss? Why do you have to publicly announce the split? "You're destroying the hope of the race," Furness interrupted Lurden and said coldly. "So what?" The people from the Guardian faction were shocked. They felt that the once firm and reliable Furness had become a complete stranger. The two sides were in a stalemate, and the surrounding Sunil soldiers gradually surrounded them. Further away, the mercenaries all took out their snacks and watched this battle without blinking. Their faces were filled with excitement, as if they wanted to see the world burn. Han Xiao casually grabbed a weird cigar-like cigarette from a dwarf mercenary. He took a puff, shrugged, and said, "See? This is the result of a long-distance relationship." Brilliant. The people around them who were watching the show laughed out loud. The mercenaries were a group of very cold and unsympathetic people. Han Xiao was very open-minded. The split of the Sunil race was destined to happen. It was the beginning of the end of the Sunil civilization and Herlu's part. He was just a spectator now. Only when Sunil split and became chaotic would he have the chance to be a third party. All he had to do was wait for everything to develop naturally. Furthermore, with his intervention, the split might not be the source of the tragedy like in the original plot, but a new beginning. He could also benefit from it. This was a win-win situation. Chapter 346. The split was a foregone conclusion, and the Independence faction was determined to leave. The Guardian faction was both shocked and angry. Everyone was supposed to protect the race together, but now someone had betrayed them and even dealt a heavy blow to the things that they had once protected before they left. The Guardian faction could not help but be agitated and question loudly. "You're also a Sunil. How can you abandon your own race in such a time of danger?" Furness was expressionless. "My race, my appearance, my life form, these factors that were determined at birth cannot decide my thoughts and stand. I've sacrificed my abilities, and now I want a new life." The people of the Guardian faction still wanted to question, but seeing that the people of the Independence faction were calm and did not feel guilty at all, the Guardian faction suddenly could not bring themselves to criticize them. These people opposite them were all brothers who had once fought side by side, and everyone had given their blood and sweat. They were not enemies, but comrades who had parted ways, so they did not have much of a right to criticize the Independence faction. They could only say that everyone had their own ambitions. Furness pushed away the people blocking the way, and the people of the Independence faction left. The Sunil soldiers and the Guardian faction watched them leave in silence. At this time, every Sunil seemed to have seen a gloomy future. Sobbing sounds could be heard. The iron-blooded soldiers who did not fear death in battle were now crying continuously. This was the collapse of the mental support in their hearts. All these years, the supers who protected the race had been shaped into the mental totem of the Sunil, the driving force of resistance. The soldiers were not afraid of death, but they were heartbroken by the split today. Sometimes the collapse of the mental support is even more of a blow to a whole than an external disaster. Han Xiao shook his head. The Sunil in distress was like a resilient, disabled person. The loss of his body could not defeat him, and he still maintained his fighting spirit. His thoughts were sound, but when his mental beliefs also collapsed, he became mentally disabled and lost his driving force. Therefore, the impact of the split on the race was not just the loss of a group of supers. It had a profound impact on the spirit of the people, the soldiers, and the resilient quality of the race. Herlu's position as the main character was to weaken Furness and the other former heroes of the tribe after the split. Herlu was raised to become a new benchmark and a new source of motivation, representing that there were still people persevering. In his previous life, Herlu's future position was higher than Furness's in the past. If Furness was the representative of the change from being generous and hot-blooded to being bored and indifferent, then Lurden was the representative of the sin of redeeming himself, and Herlu was the representative of the escapist slowly awakening to his sense of responsibility. After Sunil's fall, the mindset of the race kept changing from hot-bloodedness to indifference, and from indifference, they found a belief to persevere. The belief collapsed in the split, and Herlu's appearance built a new belief in the ruins, giving the race a new quality. His experience and actions gave the confused race a reason to persevere, staggering forward in pain and hardship. The conflict in his heart was a microcosm of the entire race. Haluz was not like Bennett, who was far away in Blue Star building a sanctuary. He had already established a firm belief, and Haluz was a growing main character. Thinking about the direction of events in his previous life, Han Technician was a little emotional. Unfortunately, water can float a boat, but it can also sink a boat. When Haluz died in battle, the Sunils gave up struggling and went into the arms of Ghidorah. The people of the Independence faction left the defense circle and entered the forest. They planned to find a place to contact the Galactic Travel Agency and never come back. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of them. It was that mysterious armored warrior. Furnaz and the others stopped. Haluz took off his helmet and said with a complicated expression, "Why? You came to me before you left because you wanted me to protect the race for you. But what you're doing now is destroying the will of the race." Furnaz looked at him coldly, shook his head, and said, "If I don't leave, how are you going to replace me?" Haluz's eyes were slightly angry. "Just because of such a stupid reason? Actually, I hate you a lot. You have so much power, but you're just hiding at the back like a rice worm. You have no right to tell me what to do." Furnaz's face was cold. "Now, you've already shown your strength and exposed your armor. The race will definitely do their best to search for you. You can't go back anymore." Haluz was shocked. "You're plotting against me. That's why don't overestimate yourself." Furnaz's eyes narrowed, and he said coldly, "Everyone has been through so much. Why would we change our minds because of a minority like you? We left to pursue our own goals, just like those brothers who continued to persevere. Even if our division caused negative effects and made them be criticized by a small number of people, it wouldn't shake their stupid determination to protect the race. I still say the same thing. Only living is important. I want the entire race to no longer have the luxury of persevering. This meaningless struggle doesn't need to continue. Just accept Ghidorah's aid obediently. That way, no one will have to bleed anymore. No need to fight anymore. All Sunils can have a stable life. This path is the true way to protect the race." Haluz opened his mouth, and Han Zhao's face appeared in his mind again. He had once told Furnaz about the future of the race after they accepted military aid, but Furnaz insisted on his view and did not waver. He felt that this was a wrong prediction. The people from the Independence faction left. Haluz hesitated for a long time before he gradually made up his mind. He left the forest and walked toward the defense circle. The army was still in shock from the division. When they saw this mysterious armored warrior appear, they were stunned for a while before they remembered the order from their superiors. They hurriedly collected their emotions, suppressed the confusion in their hearts, and surrounded him with military orders. In front of countless soldiers, Haluz slowly took off his helmet, glanced at the exhausted soldiers, took a deep breath, and slowly said, "My name is Haluz." To the entire Sunil race, this catastrophe had gone through many twists and turns. After the war, the Guardians had split, but the legendary Commander-class armor had appeared again, and a hidden Grade B super called Haluz had stood out to surround the race. For the next few days, the media had greatly exaggerated Haluz's experience, creating him as a hero who had stood out in a time of crisis. They reported that the Research Institute would invest a huge amount of money after they obtained the Commander-class armor, and that one day, the race would be able to obtain the technology for the Commander-class armor again. They used Haluz and the future plan to dilute the impact of the division. Under the concerted efforts of the military and the leadership, Haluz's name was known by everyone, and he gradually became a new role model for the race. Sunil dismissed the mercenary group, and the mercenaries left one after another. During this period of fighting side by side, Han Xiao had gotten to know many of his peers, and they had a lot of fun chatting. The other mercenaries had a deep impression of the Black Star mercenary, who had not suffered any injuries, and they all expressed their goodwill. Mercenaries like to get to know their peers. They might have to fight side by side one day. Chapter 347. Through the battlefield maintenance, Han Xiao reverse-engineered a few new blueprints, including floating turrets, large-caliber defensive machine guns, and 3 types of soldier-level armor: assault, reconnaissance, and defense. As he expected, the NCO-class armor required heavy mechanical modification, and its progress was stuck. However, Han Technician was not the type to return empty-handed. He used his connections with the military and spent more than 2,000 anas to buy 3 different types of NCO-class armor. When he returned to Ubarely Hub and learned heavy mechanical modification, he would be able to produce the blueprints and sell them to the players under him. He could easily earn back the cost of the armor. Everyone got 12,000 anas. Our market spending power has greatly increased. Han Xiaoxin was overjoyed. This kind of armor was very easy to sell. He only needed to invest some EXP to upgrade the blueprints. Furthermore, he had the bonus of machinery affinity, so the armor he produced was much better than the assembly line. After he sold it, he could even earn long-term repair fees. The commission he earned from accepting the mission was only about 1 class advancement knowledge, but through this group of players, his income could multiply many times. The Black Star mercenary group's credibility points had increased quite a bit, and they finally had their first battle employment resume. The Sunil race had written down the details of the mission, and it showed that the mercenary group had applied for the most dangerous wild mission, which they had completed perfectly without any casualties. This new resume could be said to be extremely valuable. The Sunil faction favorability was unlocked, and it increased by 1,000 points, reaching friendly. Furthermore, the reputation increased by 5 points, which was 2 points more than the original reward. The Black Star mercenaries' reputation started to improve in the mercenary industry. The most direct improvement was that the faction reward limit increased by 10,000 EXP, which increased by 26 times. In other words, there were 26 more reward points available every day. After the payment was settled, the mercenaries left one after another, but Han Xiao still stayed in Forest City. The players had stayed for a few days, and some could not sit still anymore. On this day, they went to find Han Xiao. Mad Blade was confused. "Black Phantom, you call me Black Star?" Han Xiao knocked on Mad Blade's head. Mad Blade was helpless. "Black Star, when are we going back? Is there anything else you want to do here?" "Waiting for someone." The players thought that after the catastrophe was over, the mission would come to an end. However, in Han Xiao's eyes, it was just the beginning. One day later, the Sunil military sent someone to inform Han Xiao that Herluz wished to meet with him. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and smiled. He's finally here. He followed the soldier to a base facility and walked into a private room. Herluz stood up from the chair, waved his hand, and asked the soldier to leave. After closing the door, only the 2 of them were left in the room. There were 2 glasses of wine on the table. Han Xiao glanced at them and sat down directly. He chuckled and said, "I thought you would look for me earlier. I was delayed by some matters. I had to cooperate with the military's publicity. I also lent the armor left behind by my brother to the research institute." Herluz had a helpless look on his face. He did not expect to receive such grand treatment. There were 3 main reasons. First, it was to dilute the effects of the split. Second, Herluz himself was very strong. Strength represented status. There were only 2 grade B supers in the entire race. After Fernaz left, there was another Herluz. Third, the Admiral-class armor had reappeared. "You seem to have a lot of things to ask me, but let me ask you a question first." Han Xiao picked up the wine glass, swirled it slowly, and deliberately said in a slow tone, "Do you believe that I'm a prophet?" "Half of it." Herluz's eyes were bright. "Did you already foresee that I would protect the future of the race? Is that why you came to contact me?" "Of course, I didn't know that a bar owner was actually a hidden grade B super. I also didn't know that he would wear the Admiral-class armor called Shattering Light to face the catastrophe." Han Zhao's tone was mocking. Herluz smiled bitterly. No one knew that his armor was called Shattering Light, so his identity as a prophet was confirmed. However, he still had a question. "How many events can you foresee, and how far into the future can you see?" "Haha, to be honest, I can only foresee some fragments of the future. I don't know much. If I didn't coincidentally see Sunil's future, I wouldn't have come." Han Zhao's face was sincere, and he did not even blink. I see. Although I don't know much about the galaxy, I heard that foresight is usually limited. Haluz was very glad that Han Xiao had foreseen the future of Sunil and not something else. He could not help but sigh. Maybe this was the long-awaited luck of the race. Suddenly, Haluz's eyes became sharp. He stared at Han Xiao and said with a deep voice, "Then, what is your goal?" The atmosphere suddenly became heavy, and Haluz's aura was faintly visible. He thought that Han Xiao definitely had something in mind. Otherwise, he would not have revealed his identity as a prophet for no reason. He definitely wanted to get something from Sunil. Han Xiao pondered, put down the wine glass, and slowly said, "Let me tell you a story. On a backward planet with a surface civilization, there was a handsome man who was used as a test subject. One day, he was arranged to do an experiment, and he awakened the ability to foresee. He saw many fragments of the future, and with his foresight, he successfully escaped and obtained freedom. He then killed the evil enemies on that planet and became a legend that could be seen all over the planet. However, at this time, he saw a new future. A man-made disaster would descend on his mother planet soon, and the mastermind behind it was hidden deep in the galaxy. Therefore, he left the planet and stepped into a bigger world to find a way to save his mother planet. Han Xiao adjusted his collar. "I'm just a nobody. It's that handsome man." Haluz could not keep a straight face, and his mouth twitched. He did not know if this was normal in the galaxy, but in the eyes of the Sunils, it was shameless. "You and I are of different races, so it's normal for us to have different tastes," Han Xiao said generously. "Oh," Haluz believed him. He was stunned for a while before suddenly remembering the important matter. "You're saying that you entered the universe to save your mother planet? Does this have anything to do with Sunil?" Han Xiao smiled. "My mother planet is in the Garten star system, and it's about to face a disaster. I'm sure the Sunils are very familiar with the name of the mastermind behind it." Haluz blinked, and his expression suddenly changed. "Dark Star?" He suddenly felt enlightened. Everything was connected. Dark Star is our common enemy, so he came to Sunil. This is the motive. This time, Han Xiao added, "The mercenaries under me are all warriors from the same planet. They're very clear about this and are only following me to find a way to save their planet. They can testify for me at any time. I'm helping you because we're in the same boat and also to find allies. You already know why I'm here, so you can rest assured." Haluz's expression softened, and he was filled with respect. "So, you're the same as the Sunil Guardians, a hero who wants to protect his own planet." Han Xiao did not blush and said humbly, "You're flattering me. I'm not a hero." Suddenly, Han Technician felt like he had returned to the time when he had just transmigrated and pretended to be brainwashed. His Oscar soul was burning. At this moment, Haluz felt that Han Xiao's figure had suddenly become taller, and he felt a little ashamed. Chapter 348. After understanding Han Xiao's motive, Haluz's expression softened. He paused and asked the question that he had always been curious about. "What's my future like?" "You." Han Xiao picked his ear, smacked his lips, and said, "Sacrificing yourself to fight the catastrophe, dying a horrible death." How horrible?" Haluz's expression froze. Han Xiao picked up the wine glass, squeezed it tightly, and crushed it into pieces. He shrugged and said something like that. Haluz was skeptical. "Although I'm not one of those grade A supers, the beasts on this planet are not strong enough to kill me. In the fragment I saw, Forest City was breached by the beast horde. You defended the gap, fought a bloody battle, and used up all your energy. You were torn apart by the beast horde." Haluz was surprised. He knew himself too well. Protecting the race was his responsibility, but he definitely did not have the belief to fight a bloody battle without retreating. If he encountered a fatal danger, he would run away immediately. How could he become so tenacious? How long later was that? Han Xiao shrugged. "Do you think I'm a spirit sage worshipped by the arcane church? I'm just a normal foreseer, not omniscient." He knew that he should not act too far ahead when playing the role of a foreseer. This was to protect himself and also to keep Haluz in suspense. Han Xiao was clear about Haluz's growth path. In the future, He would become a hero of his race who sacrificed himself for others. As a main character growing up, Haluz was still young, unlike Bennett, who was already mature. Seeing Haluz frown, Han Zhao's eyes flashed. What I saw was only the fragment of the future that developed according to the current path. If there are other factors involved, the path will change. With Sunil's current situation, it will only become harder and harder to resist the catastrophe. But that kind of future can be avoided. This made Haluz heave a sigh of relief. Han Zhao said that his foresight ability was limited, which made Haluz believe him even more. Haluz would easily suspect that someone who pretended to be omniscient was lying to him. "You said you have a solution?" Haluz asked sincerely. Sunil's situation is very bad now. The catastrophe is only the danger on the surface. Ghidorah is not safe, and Darkstar is still watching in the dark. If you rise again, you might be attacked by Darkstar. Han Zhao gave a simple analysis, and Haluz's expression became serious. Surrounded on all sides, this was the crisis that Sunil was facing. They were like fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Haluz could not think of a solution and only felt that the future was bleak. He could not help but ask, does this mean that Sunil has no way out? Of course not. The way out has always been obvious. It's just that you subconsciously didn't think in that direction. Han Zhao chuckled. Obvious. Haluz was a little surprised. He frowned and thought for a while. Suddenly, his eyes widened, and he exclaimed, "You mean destroy Darkstar? As long as we get rid of Darkstar, the biggest threat will be solved, but we can't do it. Aren't you just spouting nonsense?" Haluz's eyes widened. He did not expect Han Zhao to have such a huge appetite. In his opinion, this kind of thinking was pure madness. Darkstar destroyed the hometowns of many civilizations, Han Zhao said calmly. It's infamous in the Garten star system and even the entire Colton star cluster. Compared to you guys, it's like a giant compared to an ant. However, it's not invincible. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been hiding from Ghidorah. You guys have always ignored this possibility because your fear of Darkstar is deeply rooted in your hearts, so you don't even dare to think about it. You feel that you can never do it. It can't be done in the first place. Darkstar's organization is too big, and it's very mysterious. I clearly remember every scene when Darkstar attacked us. Countless battleships covering the sky, countless laser beams, the shattering of the planet's crust, and the eruption of lava. Han Zhao interrupted him, shook his head, and said, Darkstar also has many enemies, and potential allies are everywhere. Other than this path, you guys can only rely on Ghidorah. If you're willing to give up, you won't be fighting against the catastrophe. I didn't say that we should deal with Darkstar now. This is just the final goal. Before that, we can only accumulate our strength and keep a low profile. You're really daring. Haluz shook his head. The hope is too slim. I don't think this is a good idea. Han Zhao smiled. He did not plan to use this kind of general direction to move Haluz. He just threw out a big goal to expand Haluz's horizons. Therefore, he changed the topic and said, let's put Darkstar aside for now. Regardless of whether we can rise in the future, we have to at least solve the current problem first. Sunil's biggest problem now is exploring this planet and solving the catastrophe. Regarding this, I have a very practical solution. Haluz was energized. Darkstar was too far away, but the catastrophe was a disaster that actually existed. He was more concerned about this, so he quickly asked, what solution do you have? I can bring a lot of supers. Haluz thought that he would hear some insights, but it turned out that Han Zhao's solution was similar to the Sunil mercenaries. The lot that Han Zhao mentioned was at most a few thousand people. Haluz was instantly disappointed. He sighed and said, supers alone are not enough. Not enough? Han Zhao smiled mysteriously. What if it's hundreds of thousands of supers? Hundreds of thousands? Haluz had a "do you think I'm a 3-year-old" expression on his face. How could a small mercenary from a surface civilization find so many helpers? Furthermore, they were supers that were 1 in 10,000. Could it be that my naivety has limited my imagination? I can bring a tide of people that is even scarier than the catastrophe. They are fearless of death and brave in battle. not only the catastrophe, but they can also help you explore the planet and excavate the Prophecy Stone mine during normal times. All they need is a small reward. At this moment, Han Xiao revealed a smile that revealed his true intentions. This was his biggest goal for this trip. What he wanted was the NPC resources of the entire race. If the players were the seeds, these NPC organizations would be the soil. The Sunil race was just the beginning. Han Technician's plan was extremely long-term. In the later stage of version 2.0, under the guidance of a galactic organization, the Blue Star players started to enter the galaxy. Han Xiao wanted to replace that galactic organization and become the guide. The players had just entered the vast galaxy, and they knew nothing about it. It was the best time to trick them. If he gave them guidance similar to the beginner's village, he would be able to guide the players to their next activity area and gain the benefits of first impressions. Han Xiao wanted his faction to become the faction system that the players followed when they changed maps. It would become a necessary part of the transition of the players' lives. If he succeeded, he would directly take in all the Blue Star players. He had already left a deep impression in the hearts of the Blue Star players. He had an innate advantage. In order to guide the players' lives in the galaxy, other than rewards, there was another thing that could not be avoided: NPC resources. Although the galaxy was vast, the players who had just come into contact with it needed time to transition. They needed a stable activity area to develop themselves, and it would be best if they could have one or more storylines to guide their actions. This was why Han Xiao wanted the NPC organizations. Not only did they have NPC resources, but they also had their own storylines. The Black Star Mercenary had many rewards, and with Pork Bun's video promotion, it was very attractive. But this was not enough. There was a limit to the faction rewards, and it was a hidden limit to the number of players. However, if he could reach an agreement with some organizations and guide the players to do missions and fight monsters, he could jump out of this limit and provide benefits through other NPCs. Since he wanted to make use of other NPCs, he had to highlight the role of his faction and let the players feel the advantages of the Black Star Mercenary. Other than rewards and items, he also needed special privileges. For example, if he could form an alliance with some organizations and the players joined the Black Star Mercenary, they could enjoy better benefits. Or, if there was a prerequisite to opening a new map, joining the Black Star Mercenary would send them to better maps to develop, and his faction could play the role of a key. Through various operations, it would create a similar effect and let the players feel that the Black Star Mercenary not only had many rewards, but also had various indirect benefits. The special nature of the mercenary group allowed the members to split up and move around different maps. This was the advantage of his faction. Players would gain areas to do missions, allies would get help, his faction would develop, and he would gain benefits. This was a win-win situation. Players were like human resources, and those who needed help were clients, and his faction was the middleman who provided the manpower. The difference was that these human resources belonged to his middleman faction. In other words, when the industry developed to a certain point, they would start to join franchises. These were only considerations from the perspective of benefits. The other perspective was related to feelings. The mercenary group itself did not have a history and lacked a sense of depth. Through helping the NPC organizations, the players could experience the storyline of these NPC organizations, increasing the player's sense of immersion. The mercenary group would then become the link connecting these storylines. It was as if the mercenary group had shared weal and woe with the players, accumulating the achievements of the mercenary group itself. Thus, it would slowly increase the player's sense of belonging to the mercenary group. Not only did the players need benefits, but they also needed a good story. Then, they would gradually immerse themselves in role-playing and develop feelings for the faction. Thus, Han Xiao decided to create a common enemy, and Darkstar was the most suitable target. Working together to fight against the same enemy was the easiest way to develop a sense of belonging. Sunil, who shared a common enemy, was a very suitable ally. Furthermore, through the introduction of the mercenary group, Entering the territories of different NPC organizations could also make the players have a vague sense of territory, which could also be grafted onto the attraction of their own faction. Feelings, sense of belonging. The long-term benefits of such emotional investment even exceeded the attractiveness of the reward itself. Players were the representatives of chaos, and Han Technician had always been working hard to create himself as one of the players, becoming a shadow that would run through the lives of the players. Developing the faction was the core to achieve this goal. His plan was huge, and it would take time to slowly realize it. Now, he had taken the first step. Chapter 349. Haluz had a look of disbelief on his face. Just as he was about to say something, Han Xiao spoke first. Don't be so hasty. You didn't believe that I was a foreseer either. If you hadn't changed your mind, we wouldn't be meeting now. I don't need you to believe me immediately. Think about it carefully. Why would I lie to you? The Sunils didn't give me any benefits. Even if I'm lying, you have nothing to lose. Indeed, Haluz nodded in agreement. Even if Han Xiao was bragging, the race was just maintaining the status quo. Haluz would rather believe that Han Xiao was telling the truth. As long as there were reinforcements, the losses of the race fighting against the catastrophe would be greatly reduced, and they would be able to develop. Although there was the potential threat of the Dark Star, the Sunils were just small fries to the Dark Star. As long as they kept a low profile, they would be able to find opportunities to grow in this dangerous environment. With that in mind, Haluz said with a serious expression, if you can really help the race get through this, the Sunils will be your strongest ally. I can't make the decision for the race, but I believe that the leaders will definitely do so. Please believe in the determination and quality of the Sunils. Of course, I've never doubted these 2 points. Han Xiao flattered Haluz, making Haluz feel good both physically and mentally. As for your attitude, I'll report it to the upper echelons immediately. Han Xiao waved his hand and said, I advise you not to say it first. A surprise is better than waiting in torment. Furthermore, with just your words, the upper echelons of your race might not believe that I'm a foreseer. Haluz was stunned for a moment before he said, That's true. If I'm not wrong, you should be like the other supers, heading to the galaxy to be a mercenary. I've been in the race for too long. It's time for me to go out and contribute. I'll leave in 2 days. Haluz nodded. Although he was very strong, he had never explored the galaxy alone. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled, and he smiled. Since we've reached an agreement, why don't you join my mercenary group and be my comrade? At this moment, Han Technician felt like he was possessed by Luffy. If he were to add in the backlight, the sun's backlight, and an outstretched hand, coupled with a hot-blooded BGM, he felt that he could trigger the super powerful recruitment success rate, plus 100% buff. Join your Black Star mercenary. Haluz was tempted. He was going to be a mercenary anyway. Not only would there be more people working together, but he would also be able to interact with Han Xiao for a long time, witness his actions, and verify if what he said was true. If Han Xiao was sincere in helping the Sunils, he would have a chance to repay him. He would help Han Xiao save his mother planet, and they could even discuss how to deal with Dark Star together. It would be way too convenient for them to talk through the night and perfect the plan. Furthermore, Han Xiao was very important to the Sunils, and he could not let anything happen to him. If they teamed up, he would be able to protect him. After all, Han Zhao's strength was at a mediocre level in Haluz's eyes. He was definitely not strong. His strength is 1 grade lower than mine. It's very dangerous to be a mercenary. I'll follow him in case he dies in an accident. After careful consideration, Haluz felt that this suggestion was very constructive and immediately gave an affirmative response. Okay, I'll join your mercenary group. Hearing this, Han Xiao nodded calmly, but he was smiling like a blooming chrysanthemum in his heart. It wasn't a waste of my 5 hairpin-style tricks. I finally managed to lure this main character away. Other than being able to contact the Sunils, Haluz could also strengthen the NPC officers of the mercenary group. This was a high-end combat force. I made a killing this time. The content of their conversation was not reported to the upper echelons. Just as Han Xiao had suggested, The Sunils were kept in the dark for now. Only Haluz knew. 2 days later, the Galactic Travel Group arrived on planet Sunil. The players followed Han Xiao, waiting to board the ship. Suddenly, they saw a tall Sunil walk over. They had stayed in Forest City for so long and had seen the military's propaganda. They immediately recognized that it was Haluz, a character that was being made into a hero. Haluz was wearing simple, casual clothes. Han Xiao glanced at him and asked, "Where's your armor?" "I lent it to the Research Institute. I can only take it back when they've derived the blueprint, so I can only bring this weapon with me." Haluz turned sideways and revealed the silver metal cube tied to his back. This was the folded state of the battleship slicing blade. This was the only equipment he had brought with him. "I see." Han Xiao felt that it was a pity. The commander-grade armor was good stuff, but he had not even reached the requirements for the NCO-grade armor, let alone the commander-grade armor. Anyway, there would be a chance in the future, so there was no need to rush. Han Xiao turned to the players and introduced. "This is Haluz, a grade B super. From today onwards, he'll be our comrade, a new member of the mercenary group." Oh my God! Everyone's jaws almost dropped to the ground. They were dumbfounded. Oh my God! The hero of an entire race was kidnapped by the captain. "Why did you join us? What's your class? Did you make some kind of deal with Black Star?" Everyone was curious about this new comrade. Haluz was surrounded in the center and felt the passion of his teammates. He was not used to it and forced a smile. The players' detection results were a sea of question marks. They were very curious about how Han Xiao had managed to hook up with a grade B super. This was a top expert in high-level maps and should be even stronger than Black Phantom. He was probably the strongest person in the entire mercenary group. The players were very excited that someone stronger had joined their group. After a while, the spaceship slowly landed. Haluz got rid of the players and walked to Han Xiao's side. He looked up at the spaceship with a stiff expression. Han Xiao turned around, raised his brows, and said, "You seem a little nervous. You've never been to the galaxy before?" "Yes, this is my first time." Haluz rubbed his hands, wiped the sweat off, and said softly, "Actually, I'm a little afraid of heights. You're a disgrace to pugilists." Han Xiao was speechless. The group boarded the spaceship and slowly rose into the sky, flying toward the outer space. Forest City slowly shrank in their vision. This mercenary mission had finally ended. They left with one more member than when they came. The catastrophe of Sunil had benefited them a lot, especially Han Xiao, who had earned a lot. We've planted the seed in Sunil this time. It could be considered as connecting with the storyline of Dark Star. The plan has finally taken its first step. Han Xiao crossed his arms, deep in thought. The destination of a spaceship was Ubarely Hub. Before the next mission, Han Xiao had to go back and rest the team, as well as digest the rewards of this trip. In Forest City, a military base was opened to become a recruitment office. After the catastrophe, it was the day for new recruits to enlist. Young people of suitable age participated in compulsory military service and received military training. The young people came to the recruitment office one after another, accompanied by their parents. Lana arrived very early. He was only allowed to enter the recruitment office after handing over his identity card. Unrelated people were not allowed to enter, and his parents were stopped outside. Lana turned around. His parents were waving outside with their usual kind smiles. He took a deep look at them before following the team into the military base. After queuing for a long time, it was finally Lana's turn to go through the procedures. The officer sitting behind the table did not even raise his head and said casually, "State your name, then take a number plate for the physical examination." Lana took a deep breath and said seriously, "Sir, I would like to apply to officially enlist." The officer looked up and glanced at him. "Do your parents know?" "They don't." "Young man, your parents must have warned you not to apply to officially enlist, right?" "Yes, sir, but I believe that my decision is correct," the officer said coldly. "Once the application is approved, you will be fully responsible for your decision. You are not allowed to go back on your words. Do you understand?" "I understand." A smile appeared on the officer's cold face. He opened the drawer, and there was a thick stack of official enlistment application forms. He took one out and handed it to Lana. Lana was about to take it, but he realized that the officer was holding the application form tightly. He could not take it out. This time, the officer said coldly, "This is your last chance to regret." Lana took the application form with a firm expression. "Very good. The official enlistment area is at the side. Don't block the people behind." Chapter 350. After playing with the armor for a while, the players remembered to compare the attributes of the Sunil enlistee armor with the ones in the shop, and they realized that the difference was not much. Same quality, 1/3 of the price. This was the conscience of the industry. Everyone was overjoyed. The remaining people stopped watching and willingly took out their money, transferring it to Han Zhao's account. More than 50 people, more than 40,000 anus. About enough to buy 2 knowledges, Han Zhao chuckled. This was not the end yet. Then, he opened up a new business in the faction store interface, equipment enhancement. When Han Zhao was creating the armor, the attributes of the armor he created could be called the basic version. This was to leave room for improvement, so that he could carry out his enhancement business. Repair and enhancement were long-term income. Han Zhao had many mechanical enhancement skills, so he had the prerequisite to carry out the enhancement business. How could Han Zhao miss out on such an income-generating business? Not only that, he also had to control his strength during the enhancement. He would not go all out on the first enhancement and always leave room for improvement. Only then would he be able to attract the players to continue spending. One could not blame the great mechanic Han Zhao for being black-hearted. Splitting an item into several batches for sale could maximize the profit, and, at the same time, the players who did not know about it would be willing. Han Zhao used the cheap and good quality equipment to compete with the other shops. First, he would make the players buy the equipment and fall into the trap. Then, he would introduce the subsequent additional business, turning a one-time sale into a long-term profit. After all, he had occasionally played standalone games in his previous life and had been inspired by the idea of selling the game in pieces. Han Zhao sighed. Back then, I was also an honest person when I was young. My young and pure heart was tainted by society. It is not the man's fault that I became bad, but the world's fault. In the next few days, Han Zhao rushed to make all the armor. Every player changed their appearance and put on the enlistee armor. It was like a mercenary group had a set of uniforms. Although the players were all supers, the enlistee class armor also provided some convenience. As a staunch supporter of the great mechanic Han, Frenzied Sword was the first to spend money to strengthen the armor. After strengthening, the attributes of the armor increased by about 10%, and the price of strengthening the same piece of equipment kept increasing. The first strengthening of the enlistee armor only cost 60 anus, the second 100, and the third 150. With every 3 strengthening, the price would increase by leaps and bounds. The fourth strengthening cost 300 anus, and so on. Every strengthening would increase the attributes of the armor by 8 to 12%. The price was low, and the benefits were high. Frenzied Sword set an example, and the others felt that it was reliable and followed suit. After the Sunil mission, the players all had tens of thousands of anas in their pockets, and they would not feel comfortable if they did not splurge. The space that Han Zhao left for strengthening the armor was too large, and he would need to strengthen it at least 7 times to reach the peak of his ability. The strengthening business brought him a total of 23,000 anas, which meant that more than 50 players had strengthened it more than 3 times on average, selling the armor for more than 40,000 anas, and the subsequent strengthening earned another 23,000 anas. Han Zhao now had more than 76,000 anas in his account, which was more than enough to buy knowledge. While he was happily selling, Haluz found Han Zhao and asked with surprise, "How do you know about our enlistee armor technology?" Building the Sunil armor himself would definitely attract Haluz's suspicion. Han Zhao laughed and said, "I derived your blueprints when I was repairing the battlefield. Isn't it amazing?" Haluz's face twitched. He had secretly learned Sunil technology, and Sunil still praised him for being amazing. Even his battleship slicing blade could not cut through such thick skin. However, the Sunil was already in such a state, so why would he care about this? Haluz still wanted to work together with Han Xiao, so he did not care about this. Furthermore, this was not a very precious technology. Most civilizations had basic enlistee armor, and their styles were all different. Uberly Hub, the regional exchange, Han Xiao had earned enough money, so he immediately went to buy promotion knowledge. The class advancement requirement that he had been stuck on for so long was about to be completed, and he was a little excited. There were only 8 mechanic promotion knowledges in the Colton Star cluster. Han Xiao glanced at them and immediately chose 2 promotion knowledges. Heavy machinery modification, price 25. Advanced electromagnetism, price 37. Learning successful. You have learned heavy machinery modification. Learning successful. You have learned advanced electromagnetism. Class advancement requirements. Total level 80, 400 INT, 5 mechanic promotion knowledges mastered. Class advancement successful. Detected that the level 80 promotion mission has been completed. Promotion successful. Yin bonus increased. 1 yin equals 40 HP equals 50 stamina. You have received a new class, Data Mechanic V1. Plus 100 energy, plus 3 DX, plus 2 yin plus 4 INT. You have received 5 free attribute points. You have received 1 potential point. You have learned the skill, Blueprint Improvement. You have learned the skill, High Concentration Refinement. You have learned the skill, Magnetic Vision, Data Flow. You have learned the talent, Machinery Analytical Comprehension. The energy in his body cheered and jumped. With the double increase in class advancement and promotion, Han Xiao felt that some kind of shackle had been broken. His vision turned black, and it felt like a few hours had passed, but in reality, it had only been half a second. His vision became clear again, but there was a huge change. He could feel more subtle things. Every time his strength increased, he felt like he was reborn. A data mechanic was also known as a senior mechanic. Their understanding of machinery had reached a whole new level, and their machinery affinity at this stage would greatly increase. Of the 4 new abilities, Magnetic Vision, Data Flow, and Machinery Analytical Comprehension were both abilities that could greatly increase one's machinery affinity. Machinery affinity was the core attribute of the mechanic class. It represented the speed, attributes, and power of the mechanic when building and using machinery. Magnetic Vision, Data Flow, was an active ability. After activating it, he would enter a special magnetic vision, and his own magnetic energy would become an extended sense, allowing him to feel the details of the machinery. Han Xiao directly raised this ability to LV10, and the effect was that it would consume 20 energy every minute, increasing his machinery affinity by 25% to 50%. The increase would fluctuate every second, completely random. Because the energy consumption was low, this ability could be activated for a long time. Different from Surging Mechanical Force, which could only increase damage, this ability could be used in building. Machinery Analytical Comprehension was a talent. Intelligence would directly increase his machinery affinity, and the effect was very impressive. Every 10 intelligence points would increase his machinery affinity by 1%. Han Xiao currently had more than 400 intelligence points. This was the key ability at this stage. Increasing the intelligence attribute was very beneficial to the mechanic class. In the long run, this was a very core ability of the mechanic class. High concentration refining was the upgraded version of basic refining. It increased the strength of the raw materials, and the effect was very important. Blueprint Improvement was a passive ability. When building equipment, there was a chance of activating the effect. The level of the equipment blueprint would be temporarily increased by no more than 3 levels, increasing the attributes of the product. There is also a chance of a critical hit during the manufacturing process, creating equipment of a higher grade. The chance depended on intelligence and luck. Han Xiao still had more than 2.5 billion experience. With a wave of his hand, he directly raised these abilities to the maximum level, spending close to 50 million experience. Then, Han Xiao immediately raised his main class to the max level of V15. Above LV80, the experience required for leveling up increased exponentially. One level required tens of millions of experience, and leveling up to 15 levels in an instant cost 900 million experience. He did not even blink. Data Mechanic leveled up to V15X, plus 240 energy, plus 3DX, plus 2 END, plus 4 INT. Received 5 free attribute points. Received 1 potential point. He directly went from LV80 to LV95. It even exceeded the upper limit of the players in version 2.0. Han Zhao's lead further expanded. The strength that filled his body suddenly swelled and became vigorous. If it was a small stream before, it was now like a wide river. Han Xiao took a deep breath and felt the strength of his body. He noticed that his energy had undergone an obvious transformation. He opened the interface and threw all his free attribute points into intelligence. He then observed the drastic changes in his attributes. Level 95 main class. Mechanic STAR 121, DX 244, Yini 214, INT 570, MYS 21, CHA 14, LUK 1 free attribute points, 0 potential points, 82 health, 13057 stamina, 15420 energy, 5210 V9, energy rank, 5377 on a grade. You are a sufficiently powerful super. You're also one of the main forces in the galaxy. Having evolved to this stage, you can look down on most creatures. As expected, my grade has reached B class. Han Xiao was overjoyed. Just my health alone has increased by more than 5,000 points, and my energy has reached a new level. My overall strength should be 40% higher than before. He had finally crossed the threshold of grade B, and he had a certain level of self-protection. His combat ability was far beyond that of grade B. Now that he had obtained 2 new advanced knowledges, his combat style could be upgraded. The sense of fulfillment filled Han Zhao's heart. My condition is a bit sluggish, and I'm about to start the next storyline. I'm a bit stuck, so I'll only update once a day for now. Let me adjust for 2 more days. Chapter 351. After staying on planet Sunil for about a month, Han Xiao and the others finally returned to Uberly Hub. As soon as they returned, the first thing Han Xiao did was to change the medium-sized lounge into a large stronghold. The rent increased from 40 anas to 100 anas, and the space was larger and not cramped. The more majestic a faction's stronghold was, the more reliable the members would feel. In fact, Han Xiao felt that spaceships were the best mobile strongholds, but a spaceship was too expensive. The players would not be able to afford it even if they cut off all their kidneys. However, human bodies were not popular in the galactic organ market either. If they had money, they would squander it. A mechanic's view of spending had always been to make money back after spending it. This trip was quite rewarding. The players had earned tens of thousands, and Han Xiao had to do a round of harvesting before he could earn enough to buy the 2-class advancement knowledges. Professional players would definitely use their spare money to buy equipment, and Uberly Hub had many private equipment stores open to different races. These were all competitors. I can't make the players only spend money here. The players have their own preferences, and I can't deprive them of their freedom. Otherwise, it will be detrimental to the development of the faction. No one likes to be forced. Furthermore, the things I sell may not be able to satisfy all their needs. However, I only need a portion of the player's wealth. Many a little makes a mickle, and the profit is already huge enough. Although Han Xiao had many ways to earn money, he had always kept his desire to earn money within a rational range. He updated the faction exchange list and added the defense type, assault type, and reconnaissance type Sunil soldier armor. The first requirement was 500 faction favorability points and 800 anas before they could be exchanged. In the new stronghold, before the players could move freely, someone discovered the new items in the faction store. Mad Blade was surprised. This is the soldier armor we saw on Sunil. How Tion was confused. That's right. This is their technology. How can a mercenary group exchange for other organizations' equipment? The players were instantly curious. Poor Bun suddenly had an idea and gave a reasonable idea. A mercenary group should be a faction with growth potential. By accepting different missions, they can update the faction store. The more missions they accept, the stronger the faction will be. Everyone thought about the addition of halloos and the growth shown on the faction interface when they first joined Black Star. They all felt that it made sense, and excitement gushed out of them. It turned out that the actions of the players could allow the faction to grow. We might have joined a special faction. Mad Blade was excited. All of them were professional players. They immediately thought of the advantages of being a mercenary group. If they were hired by a different faction, the exchange list would be updated with equipment from that faction. Then, as long as they completed more quests, the mercenary group would have more options for exchange. This way, they would not have to join other factions for equipment. They would only need to increase the favorability of the mercenary group. They were the first batch of players to enter the galaxy. Back then, they had even undergone a difficult selection. Could it be that joining this faction was a hidden benefit? The players believed that this characteristic of the mercenary group came from Han Xiao. The main character of the storyline had to be special. The players trusted Han Xiao very much, as if anything could happen. This was the image that Han Xiao had been trying to create for the players, letting the players feel that the growth of the faction was driven by them, and clearly seeing the growth of the faction would allow them to slowly form a sense of belonging. This was also the development path that he had set in the beginning. Now that the players finally felt this characteristic, they felt a sense of novelty. His strategy had achieved the desired effect. At this time, the players had money in their pockets. A few of them immediately bought the soldier armor. Han Xiao did not have the real thing, so he had to order one. The other players were more pragmatic and planned to observe the real thing after it was done. When Sunil was fighting, every player had their eyes on the soldier armor. Unfortunately, they did not have the means to buy it. Second Prince had even almost wanted to steal one. We've been fighting for more than a month. Let's all rest for a while. Han Xiao dismissed everyone, left the stronghold, and rented a machinery modification room. He first spent a few million EXP to raise the level of the armor blueprint to level 6 before starting to build it. He still had a lot of materials left from the Blue Star. Only a small portion of the Sunil soldier armor needed to be bought from the galaxy, and the cost of one set was only about 50 anus. The mercenary group did not have any missions for the time being, so the players could finally walk around Uberly Hub. Of course, they would not only spend their money in one place. There were many shops in the hub, and there was a wide variety of products to choose from. During this period of rest, everyone saw the equipment of different civilizations and bought quite a lot of equipment, such as more powerful guns and small support machines. At the same time, they discovered that some machinery shops were also selling soldier armor. This was very common in the galaxy. Although the appearance of these armors was very different from Sunil's, the technology behind them was more basic. However, the prices in the shops were much more expensive than the ones in the mercenary group. The cheapest one cost 3,200 anus, which was 3 times more expensive. However, the players started to worry. You get what you pay for. Han Zhao's armor was so cheap, so would its attributes be bad? Everyone secretly memorized the attributes of the armor in the shops and planned to compare them when the products of the mercenary group were out. Although Black Star's equipment was more expensive, when professional players had money, they would only look at the quality and not the price. Haluz went to the mercenary hall alone to register and join the Black Star mercenary. He opened the mercenary group resume. Black Star mercenary credibility points, 154 group size, 53 level, 52 grade B, 1 missions completed. 1. Low-level daily missions are not included, active area. Garden Star System resume. Sunil Defender Battle, collapse/expand. Founder, Black Star, Han Xiao creation date. Year 688, October 2 summary. A small mercenary group with a certain level of combat ability. There is 1 grade B supermember. A mercenary group that has only been established for a month? Black Star didn't lie to me. Haluz saw that there was only 1 grade B in the group, and knew that he was the strongest in the group. He could not help but feel a sense of responsibility. For the future of the race, he had to protect Han Xiao. He hoped that this captain would not choose missions that were too dangerous. On the other side, Han Xiao, who was making armor in the workshop, received a notification from the interface. Faction reward limit: 135700 leader level V80, plus 64,000 officer. Haluz B, plus 20,000 to 53 group size, plus 20,000 to 7 renown, plus 14,000 legendary point. Leader 3, plus 15% allies or enemies. Nunsanil's friendliness was in the category of individuals and had not risen to the level of faction allies. Han Xiao was energized. The faction had obtained its first officer and taken the first step. The reward limit had increased by 20,000. Recruiting officers was indeed a good way to increase the reward limit quickly. 2 days later, Han Xiao made 6 sets of soldier armor. The players could not wait to try them on and instantly felt the convenience. Individual armor was a topic that most civilizations would definitely research when they reached a certain level. The original intention was to allow individuals to obtain a stronger physique and adapt to different environments. When the players put on the individual armor for the first time, it was like opening the door to a new world. In a stronghold, a few players who had bought the armor excitedly operated the armor. The new control feeling made them very happy, and the other players surrounded them and touched them curiously. How does it feel? It looks heavy, but it's actually very convenient to move around. There's a power structure inside. Rainy Kim frowned and coldly said, "A bunch of metal lumps. They look so ugly." All the male players glared at her, and for the first time, they had a common enemy. What do you know? Mechanical armor is a man's romance. Chapter 352. After playing with the armor for a while, the players finally remembered the difference in attributes between the Senil and Listy armor and the ones from the shop. The same quality, 1/3 of the price. This was the conscience of the industry. Everyone was overjoyed, and the remaining people no longer watched. They were willing to fork out the money and transfer it to Han Zhao's account one by one. More than 50 people, more than 40,000 anus. That's about enough to buy 2 pieces of knowledge, Han Xiao chuckled. This was not the end yet. Then he opened a new business in the faction store interface, equipment strengthening. Han Xiao had held back when he was making the armor, and the armor he made could be called the basic version. This was to leave room for improvement so that he could carry out the strengthening business. Repairing and strengthening were long-term income. Han Xiao had many mechanical strengthening skills, and he had the prerequisites to carry out the strengthening business. How could Han Xiao miss out on such a profitable business? Not only that, he also had to control his strength during the strengthening process. He would not go all out on the first strengthening, leaving room for improvement so that the players would continue to spend money. Han Technician could not be blamed for being greedy. He was doing his job by splitting one item into a few batches to maximize his profits. At the same time, the players who did not know the truth were still willing to do so. Han Xiao used the cheap and high-quality equipment to compete with the other shops. He would first let the players buy the equipment into a trap before launching a follow-up business, turning a one-time sale into long-term profit. After all, he had occasionally played single-player games in his previous life and was inspired to sell them separately. Han Xiao sighed. Thinking back, he was an honest person when he was young. His young and pure heart was tainted by society. It was not the man's fault for turning bad, but the world's fault. Over the next few days, Han Xiao rushed to make all the armor. Every player changed their appearance and put on enlistee armor. It was like the mercenary group had a set of uniforms. Although the players were all supers, the enlistee armor also provided some convenience. As a firm supporter of Han Technician, Madblade was the first to spend money to strengthen the armor. After strengthening, the armor's attributes increased by about 10%, and the price of strengthening the same piece of equipment kept increasing. The first enhancement of the soldier's armor only cost 60 anus, the second enhancement cost 100 anus, and the third enhancement cost 150 anus. Every time it was enhanced 3 times, the price would increase exponentially. The fourth enhancement cost 300 anas, and so on. Every attribute enhancement was within 8% to 12%, and the price was low but the benefits were high. Mad Blade set the example, and the others felt that it was reliable and followed suit. After the Sunil missions, the players all had more than 10,000 anas in their pockets, and they would not feel comfortable if they did not squander them. Han Shao had left too much space for the armor to be strengthened. They had to strengthen it at least 7 times before they could reach the peak of their abilities. The strengthening business had brought him a total of 23,000 anas, which meant that more than 50 players had strengthened it more than 3 times on average. After selling the armor for more than 40,000 anas and adding another 23,000 anas for the subsequent enhancements, Han Shao now had more than 76,000 anas in his account, which was more than enough to buy knowledge. While he was happily selling, Haluz was very troubled. He found Han Shao and asked with surprise, "How do you know about our soldier armor technology?" Building Sunil's armor himself would definitely cause Haluz to be suspicious. Han Shao laughed and said, "I derived your blueprints when I was repairing the battlefield. Isn't it awesome?" Haluz's face twitched. He had secretly learned Sunil's technology and even had a Sunil praise him for being awesome. Even his battleship slicing blade could not cut through such thick skin. However, Sunil was already in such a state, so there was no need to pursue this. Haluz still had to work together with Han Shao, so he did not care about this anymore. Furthermore, this was not considered very valuable technology. Most civilizations had basic soldier armor, and they just had different styles. You barely hub, regional exchange. Han Shao had earned enough money, so he immediately came to buy class advancement knowledges. The class advancement requirement that he had been stuck on for so long was about to be completed, so he was a little excited. There were only 8 mechanic class advancement knowledges in the Colton Star Cluster. Han Shao scanned through them and chose 2 mechanic class advancement knowledges. Heavy mechanical modification, 25 points. Advanced electromagnetism, 37 points. Learning successful. You have learned heavy mechanical modification. Learning successful. You have learned advanced electromagnetism. Class advancement requirements. Level 80, 400 INT, 5 mechanic class advancement knowledges. Class advancement successful. Detected that the level 80 promotion mission has been completed. Class advancement successful. Yini bonus increased. 1 Yindi equals 40 health equals 50 stamina. You have received a new class, Data Mechanic V1. Plus 100 energy, plus 3 DX, plus 2 Yindi, plus 4 INT. You have received 5 free attribute points. You have received 1 potential point. You have learned the skill, Blueprint Improvement. You have learned the skill, High Concentration Refining. You have learned the skill, Magnetic Vision, Data Flow. You have learned the talent, Machinery Analytical Comprehension. The energy factor in his body cheered and jumped. With both his class advancement and class advancement, Han Shao felt that some kind of shackle had been broken. His vision turned black, and it felt like hours had passed. However, in reality, it had only been half a second. His vision became bright again, and he could sense even more minute things. Every time his strength increased, he felt like he had been reborn. A data mechanic was also called a senior mechanic. When one's understanding of machinery reached a new level, their machinery affinity would increase exponentially. Of the 4 new abilities, Magnetic Vision, Data Flow, and Machinery Analytical Comprehension both greatly increased his machinery affinity. Machinery affinity was the core attribute of a mechanic. It represented the speed, attributes, and power of a mechanic when creating and using machinery. Magnetic Vision, Data Flow, was an active ability. After activating it, one would enter a special magnetic vision. One's magnetic energy would become an extension of one's senses, and one could use the magnetic field to sense the details of machinery. Han Shao directly upgraded this ability to level 10. Its effect was to consume 20 energy every minute and increase his machinery affinity by 25 to 50%. The increase would fluctuate every second, and it was completely random. Because the energy consumption was low, this ability could be activated for a long time. Unlike surging mechanical force, which could only increase power, this ability could be used on creation. Machinery analytical comprehension was a talent. Intelligence would directly increase machinery affinity, and the effect was very impressive. Every 10 points of intelligence would increase one's machinery affinity by 1%. Currently, Han Xiao had more than 400 points of intelligence. This was the key ability of this stage. Increasing intelligence was a benefit to a mechanic. For a long-term perspective, this was a very core ability of the mechanic class. High concentration refining was the upgraded version of basic refining. It increased the strength of raw materials, and its effect was very important. Blueprint improvement was a passive skill. When crafting equipment, there was a chance of activating the effect. The level of the equipment blueprint would temporarily increase by no more than 3 levels, increasing the attributes of the product. There was also a chance of critical hit during the crafting process, creating equipment of higher quality. The chances were dependent on one's intelligence and luck. Han Xiao still had over 2,500,000,000 EXP. With a wave of his hand, he directly raised these skills to the max level, spending nearly 50 million EXP. Following this, Han Xiao immediately raised his main class to the max level of V15. After level 80, the amount of experience required to level up increased exponentially. Each level required tens of millions of experience. Instantly leveling up 15 levels would cost him 900 million experience. He didn't even bat an eye. Data Mechanic leveled up to V15X, plus 240 energy, plus 3DX, plus 2 END, plus 4 INT. You have received 5 free attribute points. You have received 1 potential point. From level 80 to level 95, it had even exceeded the upper limit of the players in version 2.0. Han Zhao's lead further increased. The energy in his body suddenly swelled and became vigorous. If it was a small stream in the past, it was now a wide and thick river. Total level, 95 main class, Mechanic 121 STR, 244 DX, 214 END, 570 INT, 21 MYS, 14 CCHE, 1 LUK free attribute points, 0 potential points, 82 health, 13057 stamina, 15420 energy, 5210 V9 energy rank, 5377 ONA grade. BU are sufficiently strong super. You can be considered one of the backbone forces in the galaxy. Having evolved to this level, you can look down on most creatures. Indeed, my grade has reached grade B. Han Zhao's face was filled with joy. Just my health alone has increased by more than 5,000 points. My energy has reached 5,000 points, so my overall strength should be 40% higher than before. He had finally crossed the threshold of grade B, and he already had a certain level of self-protection. His combat strength was far from what a grade B could compare to. With 2 new advancement knowledges, his combat style could be upgraded. Han Zhao's heart was filled with the satisfaction of having gained so much. My status is a little sluggish, and I'm about to start a new storyline, so I'm a little stuck. I'll update once a day for now. Let me adjust for 2 days before resuming. Chapter 353. The prerequisite for the Sunil NCO class armor had been met, and Han Xiao could derive the blueprint from the armor. He did not want to sell it to the players for the time being. After all, he had just sold the Enlisty class armor, and selling the NCO class armor immediately would affect the benefits of strengthening the Enlisty class armor. I now have 5 class advancement knowledges, which can be combined into many new blueprints. My own equipment can be upgraded. Han Xiao stroked his chin and thought. He currently had 4 combat modes: the core system, Amphiptera mechanical suit, the close-range compounded magnetic chain split blades plus thermoelectrical incisor gauntlet, the mid-range sonic sphere, and the long-range wrath of Garrett and sniper kiting. These 4 modes formed the foundation of a comprehensive combat system. Heavy machinery modification gave him the technology to build large machinery, and advanced electromagnetism allowed him to build stable electromagnetic weapons. Electromagnetic weapons were the next level of conventional weapons, and they were higher than gunpowder weapons. These 2 knowledges were very useful, and he needed to upgrade them sooner or later. He spent 16 potential points to upgrade them to the max level of V5. If he wanted to upgrade his combat mode, his close-range weapons were no longer able to keep up with the times, so he could use this opportunity to create something new that was thick and big. For the mid-range and long-range weapons, he just needed to change his gunpowder weapons to electromagnetic weapons. His Ghost Sniper rifle had always been an incomplete version, and it only lacked advanced electromagnetism. Now it could be perfected. The Amphipter mechanical suit itself could not be completely revolutionized yet, so he only needed to strengthen a little. If he wanted to add more functions, creating new accessories would be a good choice. Han Xiao had a vague idea of what to do. He rubbed his palms together and prepared to go all out. Not only was his combat mode updated, but he also had the ability to build large machinery this time. Han Xiao was ready to build a large surface vehicle to be the transportation tool for the whole team. As soon as this idea popped up in his mind, 2 words immediately popped up in his mind. Reliable. Han Xiao's eyes sparkled. A mobile vehicle can be the symbol of a mercenary group, and it can also show the expansion of the team and increase the interest of the members. Plus, with the addition of advanced electromagnetism, won't I be able to build a crude electromagnetic rail cannon? A vehicle is the best carrier. He immediately got to work. He bought enough parts and materials, shut himself in the modification room, and told the players to rest for a while in the hub. No one had any objections. This time, unlike when they had just entered the galaxy, the players had already tasted the sweetness of obeying orders. Evenly Good did not have any other thoughts. Walking around the hub hall every day, interacting with different races, and understanding more civilizations was a very interesting experience. Although professional players were very utilitarian, there were also many like Maple Moon who liked the story. The Sea of Stars was very attractive to them. Taking advantage of the break, Pork Bun produced the 2nd episode of the Black Star story. It was still edited like a movie, just like a TV series. Not only Blue Star, but also the players from all over the galaxy had been looking forward to it. More than 100,000 people watched it as soon as it was released. The content of the show continued from the previous episode. The Black Star Mercenaries' first mercenary mission, the history of the Sunil race, and the catastrophe. The majority of players who could not enter the galaxy were very interested in this. The mercenary group was the core of this show and also the eyes of countless viewers. The viewers slowly understood the galaxy through the mercenary group's experience, so they were very close to the mercenary group. The show continued until the end of the catastrophe. The mercenary group had a new partner, Herluz. It was like a new character appearing in a TV series, and it immediately attracted the attention of the players. Pork Bun released the new products of the faction store at the right time. The narration explained that factions could grow, which made the viewers look forward to the mercenary group's future adventures even more. At the same time, they were very envious of the players who followed Han Xiao. Han Xiao also watched the show and was very satisfied with how Bun Hit Dog had handled it. As expected of someone he had taken a liking to, such a show could gradually develop the audience's habits and slowly develop feelings for him. The effect was good. In a combat simulation room in the hub hall, Herluz waved the battleship slicing blade and slashed the simulated beasts one after another. He had not fought for too long, so he came to the combat simulation room every day to get used to it. Because Han Xiao was immersed in manufacturing, he did not update the mercenary information. Therefore, in Herluz's heart, he was still the only Gray super in the team. He felt a heavy responsibility and trained hard. After fighting for a few hours, all the illusions disappeared. The battlefield filled with corpses turned back into an empty white room. Herluz folded the battleship's slicing blade, wiped his sweat, and walked out of the room. At this time, Mad Blade, Hao Tian, and King Admiral walked out of the gravity room at the side. When they saw Herluz, They immediately approached him. "You guys are training too." Haluz nodded at the team members. The players had been very friendly to him these days, and he felt that he was getting along well with the team. Haluz was not surprised by the players' names. Every civilization had their own way of naming, and he thought that it was the custom of Planet Hanshao. He could only wonder why the players could not die. The players naturally could not tell the truth, so Haluz thought that it was a collective Esper ability. "Can you teach us some combat techniques?" Hao Tian asked. In the eyes of the players, Haluz was a treasure that had not been opened yet. They could try to trigger events and learn skills. Haluz did not teach them any skills. At most, he would teach them some melee combat techniques. With his guidance, the players' melee combat skills would increase by quite a lot. Triggering the guidance event required luck. It mainly depended on Haluz's mood. However, the benefits were free, so players would ask about it from time to time. Since they were in the same team, Haluz did not mind. At this time, the regional news broadcast on a tall building beside them suddenly sounded an emergency alert. Breaking news. A civilian Silver's traveling team was attacked by mysterious scavengers when they passed by the Shattered Star Ring. A group of Silvers was captured by slave traders. According to reports, the location of the attack is Colton Star Cluster, Fawn Star System, Star Zone 4. The scavengers' organization is unknown. The escaped Silvers have issued a high bounty, recruiting mercenaries to save their own race. This news attracted Haluz's attention. Silvers? This race came from the distant sea of star spirits. They were a race at the level of universe nobles. Some races with powerful civilizations and high evolution were called universe nobles. For example, the ruling races of the three universal civilizations were proper universe nobles. The Silvers did not reach the height of the three universal civilizations, but they were an advanced civilization that had existed for a long time and enjoyed a special status in the universe. Similarly, noble races were very popular in the slave market. They were fat prey in the eyes of the scavengers. The Silvers were very rich, so the bounty they issued would definitely be astronomical. Haluz, who was lacking money, was tempted. With such a good opportunity to earn money, he had to persuade Black Star to take part in it no matter what. Ghidorah's jurisdiction was the Garten Star System. The Fawn Star System was close to the Garten Star System and was not as big as the Garten Star System. A few star system civilizations that were slightly weaker than Ghidorah controlled different star zones. Although they had defined their territories, there were often territorial disputes at the borders. It was not to the extent of war, but it still caused chaos. Chapter 354. Silvers. In the machinery modification room, Han Shao received Haluz's message and was surprised. He turned off the buzzing lathe, and the room became quiet. The smell of hot metal floated in the air. He knew the origin of the Silvers. They were an advanced civilization in the Sea of Star Spirits. The Sea of Star Spirits was a prosperous star field, located in the Radiant Federation's territory. There were many advanced civilizations living in peace with each other, and the environment was safe. It was completely different from the Shattered Star Ring. The Silvers had a long history. In this kind of universe, noble rarely came to the Shattered Star Ring. Han Shao really did not know what was there to see in the Shattered Star Ring. In terms of scenery and environment, the Sea of Star Spirits was miles ahead of the Shattered Star Ring. In terms of danger, the Shattered Star Ring was miles ahead of the Sea of Star Spirits. Did these Silvers come here just for excitement? Now that their companions were captured as slaves, it was indeed exciting. The Silvers' reproductive ability was relatively weak, and their population was not large. The evolution of their race was relatively high, and to some organizations, the genes of a highly evolved race were a treasure trove that contained the accumulated bloodline power of a long race for generations. The so-called universe nobles had many characteristics, and one of them was that they were rare. The Silvers could be sold for a good price in the slave market, so it was no wonder that the scavengers would take the risk. Black Star, the Silvers are very generous. They are recruiting mercenaries. This is a good opportunity to make money, Haluz said in a deep voice. He had nothing to do in the past few days, and he was anxious to make money. So he contacted Han Xiao immediately. Han Xiao shook his head. The silvers are very generous, but we can't earn this money. Large mercenary groups, like the Ring Alliance army, will definitely fight for this opportunity. They're very strong, and the silvers have recruited a large group. We won't have a chance, but we should at least give it a try. There will be a chance. The mercenary industry was full of competition. The large mercenary groups at the top could get the best jobs, and the reputation they accumulated made the employers feel assured. Missions like this that obviously paid, well, usually belonged to the large mercenary groups. Actually, Haluz knew that Han Xiao had a point, but he did not give up. Han Xiao muttered to himself. He did not remember this part of the story. According to the timeline, this incident happened in version 1.0, and the players in his previous life were still playing in the novice planet, so it was normal that they did not come into contact with it. Later, when he entered the Sea of Stars, he had never heard of the incident, which proved that it was just a storm that had been properly resolved. Therefore, it did not cause any other effects. Han Xiao was more cautious when it came to unexpected events. After all, he had a plot he was familiar with. Whether or not he should take the risk to participate in an unknown plot, he had to weigh the benefits and risks. He was not a coward who was afraid of changing the plot. He did not lack the spirit of adventure and the breadth of man. However, the most important thing right now was to accumulate strength, and participating in the plot was the safest way. He did not want to cause more trouble. Let me think about it, Han Xiao said. All right, I'll be on standby. Haluz nodded. After all, Han Xiao was the leader of the mercenary group in name. Although he seemed to be the strongest in the group, Haluz was never arrogant because of his strength. After turning off the communication, Han Xiao turned to look at the results of the continuous work on the lathe. All the gunpowder guns had been upgraded to electromagnetic guns, such as dual pistols, sniper rifles, assault rifles, and so on. The effect of the innovation of the conventional weapons was very obvious. Their attack power had obviously increased by a level. The conventional gunpowder guns he created were basically purple, with an attack power between 80 to 140. However, the electromagnetic weapons he created now were green and blue, but their attack power was at least 230, and their range had increased by 3 to 5 times. The style of electromagnetic guns was completely different from gunpowder guns. The barrel was covered with layers of electromagnetic coils, and the outside was covered with a special conductive alloy gun mechanism used to restrain the electromagnetic field. It looked like a rectangular box. Every time he fired, the gun mechanism would shrink back and then immediately spring back to its original position. Because the basic bullets used were magnetic needles, there was no shell-throwing process, and the firing speed was greatly increased. Furthermore, electromagnetic guns were best at penetrating. On the table next to him was a huge silver-black scythe. It was close to 2 meters long, like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Han Xiao held the scythe with one hand and slowly raised it horizontally. A wave of energy flowed from his palm into the handle of the scythe. The next moment, a glaring electric light spread out from where he held the scythe. The pitch-black handle was covered with lightning patterns. The blade of the scythe lit up with a dazzling blue electric light, slightly rippling and letting out a buzzing sound. He casually waved his hand, and a crescent-shaped blade light was thrown out. Strands of electric light lingered on the trajectory of the blade for a long time, and a scorching aura spread out in the air. After waving the scythe for a while, he twisted the end of the handle, and the 1-meter-long scythe suddenly broke into 7 or 8 pieces, which were connected to each other like thick electric snakes. When he waved the scythe again, the range of the attack was greatly increased, and the broken pieces could be formed into different shapes to attack from different angles. Han Xiao nodded with satisfaction. He retracted his energy, and the black scythe shrunk until it turned into a 40-centimeter-long black stick with the ability to fold and carry. Battle Scythe, Electric Spear, a weapon exclusive to supers, was extremely powerful. This was a mechanical scythe blueprint that he had obtained from the latest combination. He had combined the principles of the electromagnetic burning gloves and the magnetic chain shattering blade into a new machine that he had created himself. It came with its own offensive abilities, and its attack power was extremely impressive. This was his new main melee weapon, and only then could it keep up with his current strength level. Other than that, he had added a large accessory to the Amphiptera mechanical suit. It was a full set of exoskeleton armor that was like a set of super heavy knight armor. It had 2 layers of armor on the outside, and its body was more than 5 meters tall. Its defense and attack power were even higher. This was a piece of equipment that could be stored away during normal times. Han Xiao did not give this simple and crude exoskeleton armor a name, but it meant that the Amphiptera mechanical suit had a new status. When equipped with the Batwing turbo aircraft, it would be in Amphiptera flight mode. When equipped with this exoskeleton armor, it would be in Amphiptera siege mode, which increased the capabilities of the mechanical suit. Because the structure of the vehicle was too complicated, it was not completed yet. However, the blueprint had been combined, and it was a very useful vehicle that could be used on land, sea, and in the air. However, its appearance was extremely different from what Han Xiao had imagined. To put it simply, it was a ball. Just by using the 2 advancement knowledges that he had just obtained, Han Xiao had already benefited a lot and created new equipment that was not very useful. However, in his eyes, this change was just icing on the cake. It had not reached the level of a revolutionary innovation, and he was far from satisfied. That was because with his current level, he had the qualifications to obtain an ability that could be said to be a watershed in the early to middle stages of the mechanic class. He was already LV95, and this level was only available in version 3. Therefore, the class advancement requirement was so difficult that he wanted to vomit. The ability that Han Xiao wanted was the symbol of the rise of the mechanic class in version 3. 0. Rapid assembly and supercompression technology. Only by obtaining this ability could the mechanic class truly reach the threshold of a one-man army. This was a sign that the mechanic class had passed the early stages. Many mechanic combat styles were based on supercompression technology. As the item with a real weight, the ability to be portable was very important. Just like Ghidorah's standard equipment, this ability could allow a mechanic to fold all kinds of large machinery into palm-sized metal pieces. The amount of equipment that a mechanic could carry would increase exponentially, and they would no longer need to carry heavy equipment bags. They could expand into an iron fortress at any time and create a metal storm. For example, Amphiptera's newest exoskeleton armor could be easily carried around after being compressed and folded. It did not need to take up much space and could be turned into a siege mode at any time. Or the ranger robots that could not be carried around could be folded into dozens of them and be able to attack the enemy at any time. There were 3 core knowledges for this ability: rapid assembly and assembly, high-density material compression technology, and elementary spatial technology, all of which were advancement knowledges. Unfortunately, these 3 knowledges were almost never circulated in the market. In the Shattered Star Ring, they were strictly controlled by the various civilizations. Han Xiao frowned and thought, this ability is a must for a mechanic to grow, and it's not sold in the market of the Shattered Star Ring. The most obvious way is to join a large faction to farm contribution points in exchange for these 3 knowledges. That's what most players did in my previous life. There's another way, which is to leave the Shattered Star Ring and go to other star fields to try my luck. The more advanced civilizations do not value advancement knowledges as much, so I might be able to get some. Han Technician scratched his chin and pondered. The Silvers are also an advanced race, so they definitely have these 3 knowledges. If I can get hired by them, I might be able to exchange the reward for the knowledges, but the chances are slim. After thinking about it, Han Xiao decided to give it a try. One had to have a dream. What if it came true? Therefore, no matter what happened in his previous life, Han Technician had always bought lottery tickets. Even if he did not win even once, at least he would be able to gain some luck. He put away the equipment, paid the rent, and left the modification room. He came to the mercenary hall. It was crowded, and there were more mercenaries than usual. They were probably attracted by the Silver's recruitment notice and wanted to try their luck. Han Xiao opened the mercenary information and saw the Silver's recruitment mission at the top. After opening it, he was shocked. Minimum credibility requirement. 400,400. Wouldn't even have half of that. Han Xiao was speechless. What is this called? Hope was stuffed back into the womb before it was even born. Hey, Black Star. Just as he was about to leave, someone suddenly called out to him. Han Xiao turned around and saw a blue-skinned shorty in a robe running toward him with a pair of short legs that could run 100 meters in 30 seconds. He was panting heavily. Han Xiao stared at him for a while, slapped his head, and said, "Hey, aren't you? Wait, don't remind me. I remember. What's your name, Mudman?" "It's a blue Nyan," Martin said angrily. His steel-like hair suddenly grew longer, turning from spikes to needles. This was how a blue Nyan behaved when they were angry. Chapter 355. What do you want to do? Han Xiao raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. He had only met Martin once. A month ago, Martin had tried to recruit mercenaries in private. Martin had rejected his application because he was picky about his lack of combat experience. It could be considered a small conflict between them. If it weren't for the iconic blue-skinned dwarf, he would have forgotten about it. Martin rubbed his hands awkwardly and said with a warm tone, are you interested in being hired? It's still the same mission as before. Our research team is going to explore a planet." Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and said, "It's been a month, and you still haven't found anyone." Martin looked awkward and did not know what to say. During the private recruitment, only a few very weak mercenaries came to sign up, but they were all rejected by him. The pick and choose dragged on for longer and longer. Finally, he couldn't help but issue an official recruitment through the Mercenary Alliance. But because the pay was too low, no qualified mercenaries applied, so the operation had been in a state of stagnation. A few days ago, the mercenaries who had participated in the Sunil mission had returned and mentioned the name of Black Star. A team with the ability to revive had attracted the interest of many mercenaries, and they had become famous in U-Barely Hub. Martin had found out by chance that he had rejected a strong team and missed the opportunity. He regretted it so much that he immediately ran over when he met Han Xiao again. "Same price, for 100 annas per person. Let's move quickly." Martin's face was full of hope. Han Xiao had applied once before, and he felt that Han Xiao would not reject him. "Find someone else." Han Xiao shook his head and turned to leave. The last time, he had wanted to earn some extra money because he was going the same way as Planet Sunil. Now that the opportunity had passed, he did not care about the pay at all. So why would he make the trip? Martin grabbed Han Xiao's arm and hurriedly said, "Do you think the price is not right? You can have more money. How about 500? 480? Han Xiao felt helpless as Martin grabbed his arm tightly. His application had been rejected by Martin, and now Martin had come looking for him. This miser even wanted to add more money. The difference in treatment was too obvious. The trip to Planet Sunil had given the Black Star mercenary quite a bit of fame, which was why such a scene had occurred. A galactic mercenary with a certain level of strength and the ability to revive would definitely receive a certain level of attention. While the two of them were tugging at each other, a voice rang out beside them. "You're Black Star?" Han Xiao turned around and saw the speaker walking over. He was wearing a pure, white metal combat suit. The surface of the suit was smooth like enamel, but it was actually made of some kind of high-strength alloy. "You're from Skyring?" Han Xiao's eyes narrowed. He grabbed Martin's collar and pulled him away. This person was wearing the battle uniform of the Skyring army. He was a mercenary from Skyring. The Skyring army was one of the largest mercenary armies in the Shattered Star Ring. They had more than 10,000 members, and their army commander was a Calamity-grade super. Their business was spread all over Jellin, Colton, and several other star clusters. Tian Huan had not interacted with him yet. Han Xiao was slightly curious and asked, "Why is Tian Huan looking for me? You have a pretty good team. My team leader wants to discuss cooperation with you. Do you have time now?" Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. Cooperation? Sounds good. However, with Tian Huan's strength, there was no reason for them to be interested in a small team unless there was something special about them that attracted Tian Huan. After thinking about it for a while, he guessed the reason. It can't be wrong. They're most likely interested in our undying trait, Han Xiao laughed in his mind. It was all thanks to the news spread by his peers. He was very curious about what kind of cooperation Tian Huan was talking about. With such a large organization, their request would definitely not be simple. I have time. Let's go. Han Xiao left Martin behind and left with the Sky Ring mercenaries. Martin sat on the ground, dumbfounded. Tian Huan was extremely famous in the mercenary industry. In just 1 month, the Black Star mercenary that he had rejected was valued by Tian Huan and was invited to work with them. It was unbelievable. Martin thought about how he had rejected Black Star because of his pickiness and could not help but feel even more regretful. I was the one who came first. Han Xiao walked into the stronghold of the Tian Huan mercenaries and saw 20 to 30 Tian Huan mercenaries of different races. They were either sitting or standing. When they saw him enter, they all looked at him. I'm Gashley, the leader of this team. A golden-eyed, purple-skinned mercenary walked out from the crowd. He was tall and muscular, and he was 2 meters tall. He was from a race from the Jellic Star cluster. Gashley's combat uniform was slightly different from the other members. A golden ring surrounded the triangular crystal on the chest of the combat uniform. This ring was the symbol of rank within the Tian Huan army. Although there was a lot of freedom in such a large mercenary organization, there were still differences in status. The more rings one had, the higher one's status, and the status was determined by one's strength. Team leaders had 1 ring, and the highest rank was the commander of the Tian Huan army. He had 1 more ring than a team leader. Black Star, Han Xiao. After the simple introductions, Han Xiao went straight to the point and asked, "You want to work with me? What's the situation?" Tian Huan is dedicated to recruiting excellent warriors, Gashley said slowly. You have a very strong team. We would like to invite you and your Black Star mercenary to join Tian Huan. The way to strengthen a mercenary organization was to recruit other mercenaries. The Tian Huan army was an organization with a relatively free structure. All members had the right to recommend other mercenaries. If they successfully recruited strong people, the person who recommended them would be rewarded by the organization. Therefore, the Tian Huan mercenaries paid close attention to strong newcomers in the industry. Gashley's team happened to be stationed at Uberly Hub, and they heard the rumors of the battle on planet Sunil. The name Undying Black Star Mercenary entered their sights. After confirming that it was not a rumor, Gashley immediately decided to invite Han Xiao, wanting to recruit the entire Black Star mercenary into Tian Huan. He was mainly interested in the revival feature. Otherwise, Black Star would not have the right to be treated differently by Tian Huan with just his average strength. Gashley would not even look at Han Xiao. Tian Huan had tens of thousands of mercenaries, and their average strength was at Grade A. There were dozens of Grade B officers, and there were even 2 Calamity Grade Supers that the civilizations were wary of. Tian Huan's sudden invitation surprised Han Xiao. He thought about it carefully and felt that it was reasonable. Mercenaries who could revive were the best vanguard in cannon fodder. Even a large organization like Tian Huan would not ignore them. He calculated the gains and losses in his heart. If he joined Tian Huan, he would be able to enjoy the privileges and relationships that Tian Huan had built up over the years. He would also be able to obtain new promotion paths and rich exchange items. However, if the Black Star mercenary joined Tian Huan, he would become someone else's vassal, and his faction would be destroyed. The long-term losses would be too great. He could not give up his faction for some small benefits. Your suggestion is very attractive, but I don't really want to join other organizations. Han Xiao rejected it tactfully. The surrounding Tian Huan mercenaries were shocked and whispered to each other. He actually rejected it. It's all benefits. Why wouldn't I accept it? I didn't even hesitate when I was invited. Gashley was surprised. He thought that Han Xiao did not understand the benefits, so he patiently explained, "You might not know the benefits of joining Tian Huan. First, Tian Huan has a lot of freedom in the management of its members. You can choose to be a solo mercenary or join a team, as long as you complete at least 2 missions every year. Second, Tian Huan members enjoy a lot of privileges." Sorry. Han Xiao interrupted him, shook his head, and said, "Tian Huan is indeed not bad, but I believe that the benefits are equal to the risks. Acting independently is more suitable for me, but thank you for your invitation. NT. Chapter 356. Everyone looked at each other with a surprised expression on their faces. Gashley shook his head helplessly. Blackstar's choice of words was more polite, so he was not angry at being rejected. He only felt regret. Although Sky Ring was a large organization, most of its members did not feel arrogant because of this. Sky Ring was a proper mercenary organization that belonged to the lawful faction. They would not make enemies easily. Gashley felt that it was a pity. At this time, Han Xiao suddenly changed the topic and asked, Blackstar Mercenary has only been established for a month. Sky Ring is interested in us because we have the legendary ability to revive, right? Gashley did not hide it. He nodded and said, yes. Han Xiao smiled and said, although I don't want to join other mercenary organizations, I think we can reach another cooperation model. Sky Ring is such a big business, and there must be many dangerous missions. My team can accept the indirect employment of Sky Ring and replace the dangerous missions that can easily lose people. Gashley's eyes flickered. Even if he could not recruit Blackstar, it was not bad to reach a cooperation. The Sky Ring army had similar cooperation relationships with other mercenary groups. This was also Sky Ring's connections in the industry. There was a long list of these partners, which was equivalent to Sky Ring support. If they were in danger, they could ask these reliable partners for help at any time. The two discussed for a while and reached an agreement. Then, Gashley reported to the organization. Many mercenary groups wanted to contact a large organization like Sky Ring, and people often applied for cooperation. The people of Sky Ring were already used to it. Most of the applicants did not meet the requirements, but Blackstar was approved directly due to the special characteristics of his revival ability. His name was added to the cooperation list, and Han Xiao signed a cooperation contract. The general meaning of the contract was that all members of Sky Ring could contact Blackstar privately and ask for support at any time, but they had to pay separately. The contract stipulated that both parties were partners and could not start a war in any form. If Sky Ring was hired by one party, Blackstar could not be hired by the other party, and vice versa. Otherwise, it would be considered a breach of the contract, and the first party to breach the contract would have to pay compensation, and the contract would be voided. Other than that, the other terms were very loose. Han Xiao was quite satisfied with the result. It was equivalent to gaining a new client. He could use Sky Ring's reputation to expand his business. Sky Ring definitely did not lack battle opportunities, so his mercenary group would not lack work opportunities either. After all, the mercenary group had just started, and they could earn money no matter who hired them. While they could not enjoy the privileges of Tianhuan, at least they had an additional background that was beneficial to the development of the mercenary group. After signing the contract, Han Xiao suddenly thought of something and said, if I'm not wrong, you guys will be recruited by the Silvers. Gashley nodded. It's not just Sky Ring. The other large mercenary groups will not give up on this opportunity. My team has received a call from the officers, and we will depart to Fawn Galaxy to meet up later. Han Xiao's eyes flashed. Can my team follow you? If you get a mission, you might need our help. I'm happy to be hired by Sky Ring. Gashley paused for a moment and thought about it. There did not seem to be any harm in bringing a group of immortal mercenaries, so he said, okay, you can bring your team to the dock later and take our spaceship to move together. However, you have to be mentally prepared. If the mission is very simple, Sky Ring will not need our help, and you will have come for nothing. Han Xiao waved his hand, indicating that it was fine. He felt that this was a pleasant surprise. Using Sky Ring's relationship, he could skip the credit point requirement. Although the mercenary group was still very weak and did not have much chance to gain the favor of the Silvers, he could count on Sky Ring to hire him again. The 3 types of knowledge of compression technology were his goal. Sky Ring had many experts, so they would not lack the advanced knowledge. If he was lucky enough to be hired, he felt that he could try to raise the conditions. After finalizing the time and dock number, Han Xiao returned to the stronghold and gathered all the members. We have a new job. Get ready. we will depart soon, Han Xiao said with his arms akimbo. Everyone was overjoyed and excited. Knowing that the mercenary group had the potential to grow, the players had been looking forward to the next adventure. After being idle for so long, there was finally work. Maple Moon raised her hand and asked, "What are we doing this time? Why didn't the mercenary group's information show a new hiring mission?" Recently, the Silvers have received quite a lot of attention. We will follow the people of Sky Ring to the Fawn Star system. I have formed a partnership with them, so we might get hired. Han Xiao thought about it and added, "Also, don't raise your hand next time you ask questions." No wonder the interface did not trigger a mission. Everyone understood. They followed Han Xiao's lead and had no objections to the arrangement. Haluz was very surprised. He knew how powerful Sky Ring was. It had only been a few hours since they last met. So how did Han Xiao form a partnership with Sky Ring? There was no sign at all. Haluz pulled Han Xiao aside in private and expressed his doubts. Han Xiao did not hide anything and told him the whole process. "I see." Haluz was impressed. If he were the one negotiating, he probably would not have thought of proposing a partnership and would have lost this opportunity. Although in his eyes, Han Xiao was not strong enough, his ability to make use of every opportunity was amazing. Such a person was more suitable to be the captain. "Then, did you foresee anything?" Haluz whispered. Han Xiao shook his head helplessly. He really did not this time. The Silvers were not a storyline he was familiar with, so he did not have any impression of it. It should not be anything big. The Sky Ring army was huge, so Gashley's team had an internal spaceship. It was a civil spaceship that was dozens of meters long, narrow at the front and wide at the back. It was streamlined and looked like a water droplet, but it had sharp edges. The exterior armor was covered with sections of dark gold metal structure, like the gaps in the armor. On the left and right sides of the rear of the spaceship were mechanical bars that were slanted to the body of the spaceship. At the end of the bars were helical propellers. There were a total of 4 propellers that could change angles and were more flexible. This was a spaceship from a civilization in the Jellic Star cluster. It was equipped with a light hyperdrive engine, good at galactic travel, but slightly weak in combat. This kind of small spaceship was much cooler than the large spaceships of the Galactic Travel Agency. The players sized it up with admiration. Han Xiao touched his chin. He also wanted to buy an exclusive spaceship for his mercenary group, but it was too expensive. Even the simplest single-person galactic spaceship cost more than 100,000 anus. If he wanted to save money, he could only build it himself. However, building a galactic spaceship was too difficult. Engine, energy, armor adaptability, structure strength, probes, and so on required a lot of knowledge. He was far from being able to do it now. When it was time to meet up, the Sky Ring mercenaries arrived, and the group walked onto the spaceship. Gashley set the automatic route on the control panel. The spaceship left the dock and entered the outer vacuum with a shake. The rear thrusters emitted a golden light, and the spaceship gradually entered the hyperdrive state. The bright galaxy outside the window quickly blurred and finally turned into a pulling glowing line that seemed to have an infinite length. It rushed into a teleportation stargate near Ubarely Hub. We can reach the Fawn Star system very quickly through the stargate. The silver spaceship is stationed on Planet 12 in Star Zone 4. The journey will take about 12 days, Gashley said to the group. There were more than 80 people on the spaceship, so there was quite a lot of space. After the players allocated their rooms, they showed their initiative. They went to chat with the Sky Ring mercenaries. Han Xiao went to find Gashley. The two of them had just met today, so they mainly talked about the mission. However, Gashley did not know the specific details. He only knew that he was only one of the teams that had been summoned. The representative of Sky Ring this time was a 3-ring officer with the code name Ice Arcanist. A 3-ring officer was the backbone of the organization. They were basically all strong combatants with the strength of Grade B. This Ice Arcanist was the leader of Sky Ring this time and had the authority to decide whether to hire Han Xiao or not. This code name sounded like a mage. Han Xiao had not come into contact with the mage class yet. The mage class was a class that was as difficult as the mechanic class. Furthermore, the enchantment ability could also strengthen mechanical equipment. Unfortunately, the Blue Star players only had pugilist, esper, and mechanic classes. After chatting for a while, Gashley went back to his room to rest. Han Xiao then visited the spaceship by himself. He came to the living area of the spaceship and realized that there was a combat simulation room installed on the spaceship. It used virtual imaging technology to fool the senses of a user and simulated all kinds of enemies and environments to achieve the effect of combat training. Han Xiao operated the display and showed the scene inside. Herluz was waving the battleship's slicing blade and fighting with an endless stream of strange beasts. The silver-white flames were splashing everywhere like waves. Chapter 357. Herluz slashed left and right happily. Suddenly, the enemy disappeared, and Han Xiao opened the door and walked in. "Why did you come in?" Herluz asked with confusion. Han Xiao chuckled. "It's boring to train by yourself. Come, let's spar." After reaching grade B, he had not fought yet, so he was itching. He was a gentleman and would not bully the players for no reason. Coincidentally, Herluz was a veteran grade B, so it would be meaningful to spar with him. Sparring with this old grade B would make it easier for him to understand how strong he was. Only by knowing his strength would he have the confidence to seek death. Ahem, do things in the future. Spar. Herluz was speechless. He only had one thought in his mind. You? The grade of a super was different from the cup size. The difference between C and B was like the difference between the Earth and the Earth. It was completely unequal in terms of combat strength. It would only be called a spar if both sides were evenly matched. Herluz was not too willing. He was so strong, and he could easily hurt Han Xiao if they fought. However, thinking about it, Han Xiao's action was like the other members of the mercenary group. It should be called asking for guidance. Herluz suddenly understood. So that's what it meant. The captain wanted to ask for guidance from him. No problem. Do you need to prepare anything? Herluz agreed generously with a relaxed expression. As the saying went, the one who was more capable would be the teacher. He was very happy to guide his friend. Furthermore, Han Xiao's safety was very important to him. If he could make Han Xiao stronger, he would be more at ease. Han Xiao did not stand on ceremony at all. He told Herluz to wait for a while and move boxes of mechanical equipment into the room. If he did not test all the weapons, he would not be able to face an opponent of the same grade. Initially, Herluz was very calm, but when he saw more and more weapons, his face started to twitch. When Han Xiao moved a prototype of an electromagnetic railgun in, he could not help but gasp. Hey, enough is enough. Under Herluz's protest, Han Xiao had no choice but to give up the idea of testing the upper limit of a grade B pugilist. He put on the amphiptera mechanical suit and moved his limbs. Melee combat was the strength of the pugilist class, and the simulation room had limited space and was at a disadvantage. Therefore, before the fight started, Han Xiao opened up a certain distance and asked casually, "Are you ready?" "You do it." Herluz was very calm. There was no need to prepare when dealing with an enemy who was one grade lower. As soon as he said that, Han Xiao flipped his hands, and his leg armor slid open, revealing two electromagnetic pistols. He fired crazily, and the muzzle flashed with blue electric light. The sound was different from the sound of gunpowder, but it was a high-frequency, buzzing sound with electric current. The needle bullets with a faint blue light poured toward Herluz, who was not far away. The battleship's slicing blade was raised in time and blocked in front of him like a shield, making clanging sounds. Herluz's eyes changed slightly. Electromagnetic guns? The core ability of mechanic was to create machines to fight. Being able to create electromagnetic guns meant that their attack power had reached a whole new level. The electromagnetic guns fired very quickly, and he almost could not react in time. Herluz did not dare be slow. Although he had energy to protect his body was his after all. He did not want to be focused on it all. Herluz did not know much about mechanics, but he knew that only high-grade mechanics could create more high-tech weapons. He was a little confused. Could a grade C mechanic create stable electromagnetic guns? Herluz approached with his blade raised. His speed was much faster than a sports car. As he closed the distance, Han Xiao slid around and maintained his distance. There were many guns hidden under the armor. Pistols, assault rifles, and sniper rifles were all replaced with electromagnetic guns, which were much more lethal. The effect of long-range kiting was even more disgusting. Haluz was indeed a Greyby. His reaction was very fast, and the wide battleship slicing blade was suitable for blocking. Han Xiao fired hundreds of shots, but less than 5% of them hit. The damage was greatly reduced by the energy shield and strong bones of a pugilist, so only some superficial wounds were caused. Han Xiao then saw Haluz's data interface. LV-98, Grade B pugilist, high in both strength and endurance. Half-tank pugilist. He really has a lot of talents, almost as many as me. Plus, their effects are all very strong. Wow, this guy also has a low-level luck glow. Han Xiao was very envious. According to Haluz's description, he had been very lazy since he was young, but he had extraordinary talents. He never trained hard, and after more than 10 years of training, he still reached Grade B. Maybe this was talent. Han Xiao could not help but think that if Haluz did not die like in the original plot, he might have reached Grade. This is a stock with great potential. This thought flashed through his mind. As his strength increased, Han Xiao's brain worked faster. He could think about other problems while fighting without being distracted. This time, Haluz suddenly stopped and did not chase anymore. The silver-white flames suddenly expanded, then contracted and gathered in his palm, turning into a blinding silver-white light ball. Boom! Veins popped out on Haluz's face, and he seemed to be having a hard time. He roared and pushed his palm out. The light ball suddenly shot out, and energy continuously flowed out from his palm. A blinding silver-white light wave shot out like a roaring dragon, and the light filled Han Xiao's vision. Wow, a member of the Sun family. Han Xiao blocked with his hands. The next moment, the light wave hit his arms and sent him flying into the wall. The burst of light swallowed up his figure. As long as a pugilist learned the shockwave blast technique, they would be able to release waves. This was one of the pugilist's skill tree abilities, just like the mechanic's knowledge tree. It compressed energy into a ball, and its power depended on the energy level. The disadvantage was that it consumed a lot of energy. There was a difference between waves. Compared to Grade C, Grade B waves were obviously thicker and longer lasting. Even if Haluz lowered his energy output for fear of breaking through the simulation room's walls, the rapidly rising temperature in the room showed the power of this attack. This should be enough. No, why did I use this move? Haluz was shocked. He originally had the intention of teaching Han Xiao, but because he felt a slight threat during the battle, he subconsciously treated Han Xiao as a great enemy and used a powerful attack. He immediately regretted it. Energy waves of this intensity could even injure Grade C pugilists, let alone mechanics. Just as he was about to stop the energy output, a crescent-shaped lightning shot out from the center of the light wave and slashed the light wave apart. Han Xiao leaped into the air with a ferocious black scythe in his hand. He descended and slashed down with the scythe. Electric snake tear. Haluz immediately raised his blade to block. The scythe created a storm of sparks on the battleship's slicing blade, and the sound of metal rubbing against metal mixed with the sound of electricity. He stepped back and avoided the attack. He saw that Han Xiao, who had landed on the ground, had many parts of his body burned red by the light wave. White steam surrounded his body, and agile mechanical force electric snakes flowed all over his body. His energy reaction had risen to a shocking level. Han Xiao twisted his neck and joked, "That was close. I almost couldn't take it." Although he said so, his tone was calm and full of energy. There were no signs of him being injured at all. Haluz's eyes widened. To be able to take an energy wave head-on without being injured and still be able to release such an aura, there was no way he was just a Grade C. "You're a Grade B super?" Haluz was stunned. "You were not this strong when you were in Sunil." Han Xiao shrugged and said, "I improved." It had only been a few days, and he had already improved beyond his grade. "Could it be that you're more talented than me?" Haluz was dumbfounded. He had always known that his endowment was very strong. Although he was not proud of it, seeing a super who was more talented than him now made him feel complicated. Don't stop. We're not done yet. Han Xiao reached out and grabbed the equipment box beside him. There was a magnetic connection between the mechanical suit's palm and the box. The box seemed to be summoned and flew toward him. In midair, the box opened automatically and the exoskeleton armor inside popped out. Following the position of the magnetic connection, it quickly floated over and covered Amphiptera. In the blink of an eye, it formed the siege mode of a metal giant. Another benefit of advanced electromagnetism was that by adjusting the magnetic force of different parts, the equipment could be connected automatically. There was no need to manually put on clothes anymore, which increased the speed of putting on the armor. Feeling the energy reaction from Han Xiao that made his heart tighten, Helu's expression became serious. He adjusted his attitude and threw the idea of guiding him out of his mind. You're right. Our battle can be considered spar. Chapter 358. After experiencing the convenience of the automatic assembly, Han Xiao could not help but sigh. Magnetic link is really good stuff. The exoskeleton armor was rough and ferocious. The thick and black alloy armor and the intertwined mechanical structure were very visually appealing. The assault form leaned towards strength and defense, moving like a train. The mechanical limbs were thick and equipped with a large number of power structures, giving an additional 10 points of strength and over 10,000 armor points. Advantages and disadvantages always came together. The disadvantage of the assault form was that it lowered agility. Amphiptera's body was wrapped in the thick exoskeleton armor, but luckily, with the knowledge of neural link, it was very easy to control the exoskeleton mechanical limbs. Battle Scythe. Electric Axe was originally a 2-meter-long weapon, but now it was like a short scythe for harvesting crops. Han Xiao charged forward with large strides, causing the ground to shake. Slash after slash, the scythe and battleship's slicing blade clashed continuously. The two of them fought fiercely. Clang, clang, clang. The battleship's slicing blade left scars on the armor. Han Xiao knew advanced material science and combined it with advanced electromagnetism to create a new alloy. The material was tough and had an additional damage reduction effect after electricity was applied. Combined with the tough materials from before, the defense was extremely high. If it was normal steel, it would have been cut in half by Helu's blade. Han Technician was not arrogant enough to fight a pugilist in close combat. He could now control 7 sonic spheres at the same time, so he could bear a higher load on his nerves. He also had various weapons attacking continuously. After fighting for a while, the exoskeleton armor was full of scars, and Helu's was also cut a few times by the scythe. They were basically on par. Clang! After the last clash of weapons, the two of them pulled away and stopped attacking at the same time. Not bad. Han Xiao chuckled. After this fight, he had a more direct understanding of his own combat ability. The threshold for grade B was 5,000 ona, and the standard for grade A was 1 ona. The calculation model of the energy rank was a curve. The higher the number, the bigger the difference. Therefore, the higher the grade, the more obvious the difference between those of the same grade. The destructive power of 5,000 ona and 9,000 ona was completely different. Han Zhao's combat power was around 5,300, and he was still a grade B newbie. Helu's had been grade B for many years, but he had been neglecting his training, so his energy rank was only around 5,000. However, with Helu's talent, he still had a lot of room for improvement. Level B strength was the backbone of the Starry Sky and could basically protect themselves. However, it was still far from the level where they could do whatever they wanted. Knowing his own level, Han Xiao could better plan his next move. Helu's let out a deep breath and put away his weapon. He would not use his trump card until the battle was over. He knew very well that, as a mechanic, Han Xiao would definitely have more trump cards. Just from the exchange of blows just now, he had already felt a great deal of pressure. Han Zhao's attacks were endless, just like a hedgehog. If he wasn't careful, he would be injured. Oh no, he was already injured. After bandaging the wounds on his body, With the physique of a pugilist, it would probably heal in a few hours. Black Star was an opponent of the same level, and Han Zhao's combat power had gained his recognition. Haluz was much more relieved about Han Zhao's safety. When he first joined the Black Star mercenary, he realized that he was the strongest in the team and always felt that he was unreliable. Now that he finally had someone of the same level, Haluz's view changed. To be more specific, he originally thought that his teammate was a burden, but now he was gradually becoming a reliable partner. Furthermore, with someone of the same level, it meant that they had a common topic to talk about. The two of them smiled at each other and felt a sense of trust. Only people of the same level would have the foundation to trust each other. Haluz took the initiative to help move a few equipment boxes. The two of them walked out of the simulation room together and saw Mad Blade and a few other players waiting at the door. They were all shocked. "Black Phantom, you're so strong." Mad Blade's eyes were twinkling with stars. The content of his words was like a piece of cake. Mad Blade was very diligent. He wanted to find Haluz to trigger a guidance event, but he coincidentally saw the battle just now and was shocked. Because the mercenary group's information was public, Haluz was the only grade B, but Han Zhao was evenly matched with Haluz just now, so he was definitely a grade B too. Mad Blade and the others immediately came up with a logical explanation. Han Zhao must have been hiding his strength during the test. In the traditional view, the leader should be the strongest. The original leader's strength was not as strong as the new leader's, and this made the players feel uncomfortable. Only now did Mad Blade and the others feel comfortable. Han Technician's image was strong and mysterious. In the eyes of the players, he should be someone who could capture the moon from the top of the world and hunt turtles from the bottom of the world. Only the current performance matched the position of Han Zhao in their hearts. Mad Blade was one of the earliest players to follow Han Zhao and witness the rise of Han Zhao step by step. Every time he saw Han Zhao, he was habitually glad that he had made the choice back then. However, ever since he entered the galaxy, Mad Blade had been a little depressed. Because the team had expanded and the number of people had increased, he felt that he was left out. Back then, when Han Zhao had issued those quests with high rewards, Mad Blade had never gotten tired of them. However, the quests now were too serious, and Mad Blade missed that feeling very much. However, at the same time, he was secretly happy because of that. One had to know that no other players had seen those quests before. Even Hal, Maple Moon, and Port Bun, the other three core members, did not know what Han Zhao was like in the past. Only he had tried it. It was a very interesting experience, and he often recalled it. Han Zhao raised his eyebrows and quietly moved a step to the side. He felt that the way Mad Blade looked at him was a little weird. "Who's Black Phantom?" Haluz did not react in time. Han Zhao waved his hand. "Don't mind it. That's my nickname on my mother planet." "Oh, I forgot. You're a famous person on your mother planet." Haluz secretly made up his mind to find out more about Han Zhao's past from his teammates. He was very interested. There was not much activity during the voyage. Other than sparring with Haluz occasionally, Han Zhao would chat with Gashley when he was free to learn about the history of the ring. Sometimes they would talk about their experiences traveling the universe. Gashley was a veteran mercenary, and he had been to many places. When it came to bragging, he would often start with the phrase back in the day. In terms of talking, the great mechanic Han was never weak. In terms of knowledge, even 10 Gashleys combined could not compare to him. The two of them chatted happily and gradually became familiar with each other. Most of the regular mercenaries were more straightforward and liked to make friends. The players often communicated with the other ring mercenaries. When they talked about the standard armor of both parties, the ring mercenaries showed the effect of the ring armor. It was actually a product of compression technology. Pressing the triangular crystal on the chest, the simple and crude ring combat suit would fold and expand, turning into different complete forms. It was very beautiful. The Sunil soldier armor was instantly overshadowed, and the players were all shocked and envious. Seeing that the players were tempted by their resources, the ring mercenaries tried to lure the players in privately, promising that they would be able to get a set of ring armor for free if they joined the ring. As long as the recommendation was successful, the person who recommended it would also be rewarded. Headhunting was a common activity in the mercenary industry. The atmosphere was very free. Many of the ring mercenaries originally belonged to other mercenary groups, but were headhunted by the better treatment. However, the players did not fall for this at all. Being tempted did not mean being swayed. They were still waiting for more good things to appear in the mercenary group store. Perhaps one day, the Black Star store would also have ring armor, so they were not in a hurry at all. These players trusted Han, Shao very much. The private invitations were all rejected, and the ring mercenaries were very surprised. They did not expect the mercenaries under Black Star to be so loyal. Han Shao learned about this from Pork Bun and was in a good mood. The cohesion of the faction was slowly forming, and this group of players had the style of a backbone. At the same time, in a certain asteroid belt in the Fawn Star system, a few scavenger spaceships moved stealthily, maintaining the information interference force field and stealth state. It was the scavenger organization that attacked the Silvers. This was a group of slave traders who often sold human beings. They were notorious and had been rampant in the Shattered Star Ring for a long time. At the bottom of one of the spaceships was a prison dedicated to holding captives. This group of scavenger had done this several times before attacking the Silvers. The goods that were not too valuable were locked together, and the expensive slaves were locked up separately. The 17 captured Silvers were locked up separately. A thin man with light golden skin and messy white hair walked into the prison area. He looked gloomy. He was the leader of this group of scavenger. His name was Peggy, and he was a mixed blood God Aura. He only had 1/8 of the God Aura bloodline in his body, but his appearance was still very similar to that of a God Aura. This showed the dominance of God Aura genes. The difference was that there were thin scales on his skin, and his eyes were vertical like the eyes of a snake. He also had some kind of snake genes. As soon as they saw him, the prisoners in the large prison cell became agitated and shouted, "Let me out! I'm an exploration team member of the Holy Stone Civilization. How dare you capture me? Let me go immediately, or I will." Who are you going to sell us to? Chapter 359. The Shattered Star Ring was filled with thugs, and visitors from other star fields were rarely seen. However, there were still some people who knew that there was a tiger in the mountain and went there. Peggy interrogated 11 people in a row, and the results were more or less the same. These Silvers were travelers who wanted to go to the edge of the visible universe to see it with their own eyes. The Shattered Star Ring was one of the edges of the visible universe, and they were unfortunately robbed by Peggy. He walked into the next cell. The Silver inside was a bit different. The prisoners in the other cells would at least tremble when they heard the door open, but this person was very calm and did not move at all. It was as if he was not a prisoner, but a VIP of this ship. "You're the leader?" This Silver spoke first with a calm tone. "I'm willing to spend money to buy my freedom. You can name the price." "I'm not interested." Peggy was expressionless. His spaceship maintained a message isolation to prevent being remotely located. To avoid risks, he would not let the captives use the communicator before it was safe. He waved his hand, and his subordinates came forward to check the Silver's body. This Silver struggled violently and yelled, "I have a lot of money. Aren't you selling slaves for money?" Suddenly, one of the scavenger's subordinates found something. He tore open the Silver's clothes and took out a black bead from the inner lining. This Silver was instantly agitated. He wanted to pounce over and take back the black bead, but he was pressed to the ground and roared angrily. "What's this?" Peggy took the black bead from his subordinate and squeezed it with his fingers. It was very hard. The surface of the bead flashed with a deep light, with traces of magic radiance. "Get back to me. I'm the emissary of Dark Star. This belongs to Dark Star. If you dare to take it away, you'll definitely bring destruction and death." This person roared. "Dark Star?" Peggy sneered. "You did your homework well. An outsider far away in the sea of star spirits actually knows that there's a Dark Star organization in the Shattered Star Ring, but you're just a Silver passing by. Even I, a mixed blood God Aura, didn't join Dark Star, and you still want to scare me? Do you think I'm easy to fool?" Peggy regarded the Dark Star as a great pioneer of liberation. He had always wanted to join, but because the Dark Star was too mysterious, he did not have the chance to come in contact with it, which was a pity. If Dark Star gave the order, he was willing to lay down his life. The Silvers were far away in the sea of star spirits, so how could they have anything to do with Dark Star? How could he have grabbed the so-called emissary? How could there be such a coincidence? It was nothing more than a scare tactic. Peggy had seen too many of them. Seeing how nervous you are, this bead should be a treasure. I'll take it. Peggy put away the bead and planned to find someone to appraise it when he had time. He left the cell with his men and closed the door. Outside the door, the subordinate licked his lips and said with a greedy face, "There has never been a silver in the slave market of the Shattered Star Ring before. We'll definitely be able to sell them for a good price. We've made a fortune this time. Boss, who are we selling them to?" "I've contacted the client," Peggy said. "We're going to Floating Dragon Island." The subordinate's eyes widened. "That's that lord's territory. The client this time is that guy's subordinate. He's very willing to pay." Peggy's lips curled up, and he walked away with a gloomy smile. In the cell, the Silver was furious. He cursed, "Damn scavenger." Luckily, the secret message bead needs a password to open. They can't take out the things inside. Star Zone 4, Planet Fawn, 122. This was an ownerless planet without any civilization. The Silvers who issued the mission stayed here. A large number of mercenary spaceships arrived on this deserted planet. All kinds of spaceships formed a formation, and in the middle was the Silver's travel spaceship. Gashly's spaceship slowly landed. Han Shao and the others walked out and looked around. The formation was filled with people. Most of them were mercenaries in groups. The mission of the Silvers had attracted many famous mercenaries in the Shattered Star Ring. Gashly led them to find the main force and came to a larger spaceship. Hundreds of Ring mercenaries gathered there. Han Shao looked up. This spaceship also had the symbol of the ring engraved on it. "You're finally here." A tall woman in a blue hooded robe walked over. Third Circle Officer, Ice Mage. Her real name was Goa. She was the leader of the ring this time. She had light blue long hair, tall facial features, a cold temperament, and a hollow voice like ice. She was a mage. Although Han Shao could not feel the surging magic waves on her, he could feel the coldness coming from her. "Looks like she's a mage who specializes in the ice element," Han Shao thought. The mage class was the same as the mechanic class. They had a lot of knowledge and many styles. Ice mages were very difficult to deal with. All kinds of slow, freeze, and stiff skills were very annoying. Goa glanced at Gashly and saw Han Shao and the others beside him. She frowned and asked, "Who are they?" "Black Star Mercenary," Gashly said. "We just reached a cooperation agreement. They're here to help." "Never heard of them." Goa shook her head. Han Shao did not mind. The Black Star Mercenary's fame was only in Ubairly Hub. Compared to the Ring, his mercenary group was indeed not that impressive. Goa thought they were just a bunch of followers. Suddenly, her heart skipped a beat. The senses of a mage reminded her that she had met someone strong. She was shocked. Only then did she seriously size up Han Shao and the others. She realized that two of them had very active cell energy. Two Grade B supers. Goa's eyes changed slightly. Although Grade B supers were more common, they were not as common as cabbages. Even in the rings, Grade B supers were at least third ring officers, and this mercenary group with only a few dozen people had two Grade B supers. The ratio was very high. She was the only Grade B in this team. The high-end combat power here was not even comparable to this mercenary group. Goa looked away and said, "The Silvers hired many mercenaries, so they don't lack combat power. However, the situation is not good now. Since everyone is here, let's go over first. We'll talk on the way." They walked toward the Silvers' spaceship, and Goa introduced the current situation. The Silvers spent a lot of money to hire mercenaries to save their captured companions. They were indeed very generous. However, the mercenaries did not leave for a long time, so they were stuck at an awkward stage. No one knew the enemy's location, and the scavengers who attacked the Silvers were nowhere to be found. Therefore, no matter how many mercenaries gathered, it was useless. This kind of mission with a lack of information was very troublesome. The mercenaries used all kinds of detection methods, but the scavengers had turned on the information block. They could not locate them, and they did not leave many clues when they committed the crime. Even if they knew that the scavengers had to sell the stolen goods, they did not know where they would go. If this dragged on, their people would be sold. The surviving silvers were very anxious and released a new request. If they could provide effective location information, they would give a generous bonus. Other than us, Blades and Purple Gold's people are here too. Purple Gold went to find the clairvoyant. Maybe he can find the enemy's location, Goa said. The Blades army and Purple Gold army, two large mercenary armies on the same level as the ring, were also active in the Shattered Star Ring. The reward for this mission was base salary plus bonus. The base salary was the base salary, and the mercenaries who saved the captives would be given a bonus several times the base salary by the silvers. Therefore, in this mission, the mercenaries were comrades but also competitors. Regular mercenaries competed fairly and would not drag each other down. Otherwise, it would affect their reputation. Normally, when they could not locate the enemy, if they did not have more powerful detection equipment, the mystical foresight methods might be effective. The conditions to use abilities such as divination and foresight were very strict, and they needed very special talents. They were very rare. Players could not awaken foresight esper abilities. Even if they could learn magic divination, they could only get very little information. It was very limited. They met Blade's team halfway, and both sides walked together. Goa chatted casually with the team leader of Blades and walked in front. The two large mercenary groups had their own uniforms, and those who knew each other talked. Han Xiao and the others were very conspicuous in the middle of the two groups of people. From time to time, people would look at this unknown mercenary group curiously. Who are they? Seems to be the Ring's helpers, called something Black Star Mercenary. Not big in scale, not famous. Probably here to join the fun. The mercenaries around were whispering to each other, which made the players feel a little awkward. They felt out of place in this group, like they were outsiders being watched. On the way, Han Xiao was thinking about what to do next. He did not know if Goa had plans to hire him, but he did not want to come here for nothing. It was not easy to come here, so how could he go back empty-handed? Many famous mercenaries of the Shattered Star Ring have gathered on this planet. I came too late, and I don't have a good reputation. It seems like there's nothing for me to do. Han Xiao thought to himself, this is something that I have never come into contact with before, so I have to act according to the situation. While he was thinking, they came to the center of the formation. The appearance of the silvers was displayed in front of them. Their skin was snow white, and they had cute long antennae on their heads. They wore gorgeous clothes made of some unknown material that was soft and smooth. The lower half of their face was wearing an air filter mask. This was the players' first time seeing a universe noble. They looked left and right, but they did not see what was noble about them. They felt like they were no different from the other weird-looking galactic races. If a civilization is strong enough, the ruling race will naturally be nobles. Others will see their interests as the standard of nobles. This is a matter of class, and it has little to do with the quality of their individuals. Han Xiao patted Helu's shoulder. Why are you patting me? Helu's rolled his eyes. Regarding this topic, the Senils did not want to talk to you. The Silver Captain was negotiating with the mercenaries. I hope you can hurry up and save my friends. This has been delayed for too long. If you continue to slack off, you won't get any reward. We don't know where the enemy is, so all detection and tracking methods are useless, one of the mercenaries said. You won't be able to give us any valuable information, so we can only wait for now. But don't worry, our friends have already gone to find a fortune teller. As long as you keep your promise and give the person who provides the information, I believe there will be a result soon. You people of the Shattered Star Ring are so greedy and barbaric, the Silver Captain complained. I hate this place. No matter what, I just want results. Money is not a problem. Whoosh whoosh. Chapter 360. The fortune teller held the crystal ball and chanted. The silvers and the mercenaries watched from the side with their eyes wide open. Is divination useful? Haluz could not help but ask, would divination be able to lock onto a target that all kinds of detection devices could not find? Sunil was a technological civilization, after all, and their understanding of magic was limited. They only heard about it and did not understand the theory behind it, so it was normal for them to be suspicious. Han Xiao stroked his chin. That depends on the situation. The universe is vast and full of wonders. Some things that can't be done by technology can be done by magic, and vice versa. Of course, as technology improves, different knowledge systems will gradually have more similarities. Different paths lead to the same goal, complementing each other. Magic divination is still very useful. Can't you use your foresight ability? Haluz suddenly remembered that there was a diviner standing right next to him. I'm passive. Han Xiao coughed and brushed it off. After chanting for about 10 minutes, a blurry image appeared in the crystal ball. The fortune teller stopped chanting, stared at the crystal ball for a while, rubbed his eyes, and said with uncertainty, I saw a void dragon. Everyone was stunned. Void dragon? What are you talking about? The clarity of the divination result depended on the number of clues. Most of the time, it was ambiguous, but it was definitely related to the truth. I can only see this result, the fortune teller said helplessly. Do you guys have any ideas? The mercenaries surrounded the crystal ball and discussed. Goa frowned and suddenly said, could it be Floating Dragon Island? As soon as she said that, the noise stopped as if someone had pressed the mute button. The mercenaries instantly quieted down and looked at each other with fear on their faces. Very likely, if there are any organizations in the Shattered Star Ring that are not afraid of revenge, Floating Dragon Island is one of them. Maple Moon noticed everyone's stiffness. She pulled Han Xiao's shirt and asked curiously, what is that place? Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. Wanted criminals can't get supplies on planets with orderly civilizations, but some neutral territories dare to accept galactic pirates, scavengers, and the like. Floating Dragon Island is such a neutral territory. Isn't that where the criminals gather? Why don't those civilizations just kill all the criminals? Port Bun squeezed over and interrupted. Not pursuing past crimes in neutral territories is a tacit agreement between the civilizations of the Shattered Star Ring. There's only one reason for this. These neutral territories that have stood strong for many years all have a powerful ruler. Han Xiao seemed to have thought of something interesting, and his lips curled up. The master of Floating Dragon Island is a super beyond calamity grade. Beyond the calamity grade? Is that above grade A? The players' expressions changed slightly. They finally understood why the mercenaries had such bitter expressions. They didn't know anything about this level of experts and didn't know how powerful they were, but Han Xiao was very clear about it. If grade A was a planet-level calamity, then above grade A was a whole new level. It was enough to become an overlord in the galaxy, and not many civilizations were willing to provoke this kind of super. Take Hela at her peak as an example. She could harvest the souls of all life on an entire planet in a few seconds, causing the entire planet to fall into silence. When an individual's strength reached such a level, they no longer needed to fear many rules. Even some star system civilizations might not be able to do anything to them. They were truly terrifying. Luckily, there were not many monsters of this level in the entire universe. In the vast Shattered Star Ring, there were only 4 beyond grade A supers that were known to the world. They were all famous and lonely. The master of Floating Dragon Island was one of them. Coincidentally, Han Xiao was very familiar with that guy. In his previous life, Han Technician had come into contact with him because of a mission. The Void Dragon race was a galactic creature. Their bodies were tens of thousands of meters long, and they lived in the universe. The ubiquitous dark energy was like a medium, just like how air was to humans and water was to fish. The body of the Void Dragon race contained a special power. When they died, their bodies would turn into ice shards and dust, leaving only a huge skeleton floating in the universe, turning into a comet. When their lifespan was about to end, the Void Dragon race would wait for death beside the bodies of their companions, thus forming a comet-shaped burial ground. Floating Dragon Island was a huge burial ground. It was rumored that it contained 24 void dragon skeletons, which were captured by the current master and embedded into the surface of a desolate planet. Then, the master used his great power to tear off the continental plate and installed all kinds of anti-gravity stabilizers, ecological maintenance devices, and so on to maintain interstellar travel, turning it into the current Floating Dragon Island. Thinking back, when Han Xiao learned about this, other than being shocked, the biggest feeling he had was, rich people were really capricious. Everyone thought about it. According to the divination results, the scavengers were most likely going to Floating Dragon Island to sell their loot. So many mercenaries wanted to retreat. Sorry, I'm withdrawing from this mission. The leader of a middle-sized mercenary group hesitated for a long time before making the decision. With him taking the lead, more mercenaries followed and left. Spaceships rose into the sky one after another and disappeared without a trace. Floating Dragon Island was a place where criminals gathered, and it was very dangerous. Mercenaries on missions were not very welcome there, as they might meet their enemies. Saving people in that kind of place, if they accidentally broke the rules and offended the master, they might not even be able to leave alive. Most of the mercenaries gave up. The Silvers were shocked and angry. These mercenaries going back on their words made them very angry. Only the people from the Ring, Blades, and Purple Gold mercenary groups remained. These three mercenary groups were very powerful. At the very least, the criminals on Floating Dragon Island would not dare to touch them. Having connections and backing was indeed different. Here's my chance. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. The Silvers were definitely short of manpower now. He walked out from the crowd, smiled, and said, I wonder if you still need mercenaries? The three large mercenary groups immediately looked at him. The Silver's captain nodded immediately. This was like giving him a pillow when he was sleepy. Those famous mercenaries had promised to save the captives, but once they heard the location, they shrunk. What was the use of having a good reputation? They were not even as good as this uninvited mercenary group. Goa frowned and said, Floating Dragon Island is full of brutes, pirates, and scavengers. It's very dangerous. Even if you're our partner, Ring's name won't protect you. If you get killed, you'll die for nothing. That place is too dangerous for you. You better reconsider. In her opinion, this mercenary group dared to apply for this mission because they were Ring's partner, but she felt that it was necessary to make things clear. If a direct member was killed, Ring would take full revenge, so brutes would not do anything. However, although partners could follow, Ring would not help them if something happened. That was the difference. Chapter 361. This time, Gashley explained, Don't worry, Black Star's people are all immortals. What? Goa was shocked. She did not understand Han Zhao's team before, but after hearing Gashley's explanation, she understood the uniqueness of the Black Star mercenary. She murmured, A bunch of immortals. No wonder they are qualified to be Ring's partners. This time, she did not try to persuade him anymore. Han Xiao suddenly had an idea and said, We only know that Floating Dragon Island is the location, but we don't know the identity of the scavenger or who he made a deal with. It will be like looking for a needle in a haystack. Do you have any other ideas? The Purple Gold Army clairvoyant shook his head, indicating that his divination could not find such a detailed thing. Han Xiao was relieved. He coughed and pretended to say, I'm also a clairvoyant. I just felt something and found some new clues. Everyone was surprised and looked over. Han Xiao remembered that he had the Destiny's Child character summon card, and he still had 5 chances to use it. He asked, If I provide reliable information, will there be any rewards? The Silver Captain nodded. Of course. I want to specify a reward. What do you want? Mechanic advancement knowledge, Han Xiao said with a smile. This was a good chance to ask for something. The Silvers discussed for a while and agreed to Han Zhao's request. In the sea of star spirits, advancement knowledge was not that precious. It was basically a common item, and they could send it over just by talking to their friends. It did not even cost them money. After getting the confirmation, Han Xiao used the Destiny's Child card. His vision changed, and he entered a blurry scene. He saw some fragments. After a while, his vision returned to normal. The Destiny's Child ability was very powerful. Han Xiao already knew the general appearance of the customer. He should be able to find a target by following the clues. He reported the information, and the silvers sent the designated advancement knowledge to his communicator. Han Xiao learned it directly with his potential points, and the new knowledge entered his mind. You have learned instant dismantle and reassemble. This is the difference. Han Xiao could not help but sigh. The knowledge that he could not learn in the Shattered Star Ring could be easily learned by the silvers. This was the difference between civilizations. He almost wanted to kidnap these silvers. However, it was just a thought, and he quickly discarded this suicidal thought. Now that he had the foundation of a faction, he did not want to become a fugitive who was hunted down everywhere. After completing the employment procedures, Han Xiao asked for the compression technology and the other two advanced knowledges. Seeing that Han Xiao was the leader, the silvers all agreed. It was common for supers to ask for new knowledges. A mission was triggered on the interface. The basic reward was one of the compressed technology knowledge. If he successfully rescued the hostages, he would be able to obtain another piece of knowledge. He would be rewarded with more than 4 million experience points and some additional monetary rewards. As for the players, their only reward was money. After settling everything, there was no time to lose. Han Xiao and the others boarded the spaceship and followed the 3 mercenary groups to Floating Dragon Island. Shattered Star Ring, Unknown Area, Dark Star Base, Video Conference Room. The upper echelons of the Dark Star organization had an emergency meeting. The carrier this time was robbed. Did Ghidorah discover our plan? No, this is just an accident. The carrier they chose this time was a silver, and the one who robbed him was a slave trader. That's good. According to the intelligence, the location seems to be Floating Dragon Island. What should we do? Send someone to rob the slave that was bought, find the carrier, and retrieve the goods. Outsiders don't have the password, so they won't be able to take out the mutation source and supergene extractor. These two things cost the organization a lot of money. We can't afford to lose them. Then who should we send to carry out the mission? This is a serious matter. Let Ashes go. Ever since he officially joined Darkstar, he has never failed. Not long after, a stealth spaceship left Darkstar Base and flew toward Floating Dragon Island. Only 15 silvers? They were already very close to Floating Dragon Island. Peggy contacted the customer again and learned of the other party's new request. There were 17 silvers on the spaceship, and there were still 2 that had not been sold. He thought about it and asked his subordinates to bring the 2 silvers up. One of them was the carrier who called himself the Messenger of Darkstar. In front of the cabin door on the side of the spaceship, the 2 silvers knelt in front of Peggy. The scavengers surrounded the 2 of them and looked like they were waiting for a good show. "Open the door," Peggy said. His subordinate opened the inner cabin door, and the outer cabin door was closed. The 2 silvers saw this and guessed what the scavengers were going to do. They were shocked and started to struggle violently, but they were held down tightly. Peggy nodded, and the other silver was pushed out of the inner cabin door. Then the inner cabin door closed, and the outer cabin door opened. This silver's body was exposed to the vacuum, and he slowly floated out. His eyes were wide open, and he struggled for a while. The organs in his body were broken, and he died a horrible death. Ha ha! The scavengers saw this through the window and laughed. This was the scavengers' entertainment. The delivery silver panicked and said, "Aren't you going to sell me? I'm worth a lot of money. I have a lot of money to redeem myself. Why do you want to kill me?" Peggy's eyes were gloomy, and his face was twisted. "You're my goods. I can do whatever I want with you. I hate people bargaining with me, and I hate you superior races even more. Every time I see people like you, it reminds me of pure-blooded Ghidorah bastards. All arrogant people deserve to die." Then he waved his hand, and his subordinate repeated the action and threw this silver out. He died quickly in the vacuum. Then the spaceship accelerated and left this area. Only the 2 silver bodies floated in the cold space. At the same time, in another direction, the mercenary group spaceship was about to land on Floating Dragon Island. This was a continental plate sailing in the universe like an interstellar island. There were many stabilizers and thrusters at the bottom. A translucent cover covered the entire floating island, maintaining the atmosphere and gravity. The architectural style of Floating Dragon Island was rough, forming a city. Looking down from above, it looked like a giant dragon spreading its wings. Many mechanical excavators were fixed on the ground, and drills were used to collect the void dragon bones underground. This was a very expensive material. Countless ferocious-looking modified spaceships with different logos were docked at the dock. They were all the spaceships of scavengers and space pirates. Among them, there were many notorious criminals, such as great pirates and scavengers with a bounty of more than 100,000. The mercenary group's spaceship landed successfully. After the procedures were completed, they walked into the city together. There were extremely stubborn criminals everywhere on the streets. The three mercenary groups were all wearing uniforms, which attracted a lot of attention. They attracted the attention of countless criminals. The air was filled with hostility, making one's hair stand on end. Because they knew that danger was everywhere, they were fully armed on the spaceship. The players wore the Sunil soldier armor, and Han Shao was equipped with Amphiptera. The three mercenary groups had a wide range of businesses and had many enemies. Although these people looked at them with hatred, they were afraid of the reputation of the three mercenary groups and did not act rashly. However, Han Shao and the others, who obviously did not belong to the three mercenary groups, attracted more attention. Haluz frowned and said, "Black Star, I can feel the gazes of at least 3 supers of the same level. They're looking at us as if they want to eat us." Han Shao laughed. "Of course. We are walking together with ring, blades, and purple gold. Those brutes will naturally turn their attention to us. Look, those guys are examples." Looking in the direction of the finger, a group of galactic pirates leaned against the wall and pointed at them. Their eyes were filled with hostility. The pirate leader spat out a mouthful of thick phlegm, which stuck to Maple Moon's armor at the edge of the group. "Then, aren't we in more danger?" Haluz was shocked. "Do you know what it means to make the best use of everything?" Han Shao laughed. Before Haluz could react, Han Shao suddenly bent his legs and charged toward the group of galactic pirates. Without a word, he extended his scythe and slashed. The group of pirates did not expect this and immediately fired. Ding, 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 sparks flew, and the bullets all bounced off the Amphiptera mechanical suit. Han Shao was like a hot knife through butter. With a horizontal slash of his scythe, for pirates were cut in half. Blood splattered on the ground. "You're looking for death." The pirate leader was beside him. He was enraged. He took out an axe enchanted with flames and slashed it over. He was a grade C pugilist. Han Shao clenched his fist, and the axe was tightly held, unable to move an inch. He swung his scythe, and the scythe turned into a magnetic chain electric blade, binding the pirate leader's body like a whip. He directly activated Flaming Will, and the scythe shrunk. Swoosh! The pirate leader's health bar was instantly emptied. He did not even make a sound before he was cut into pieces. Haluz was dumbfounded. Chapter 362. As a neutral territory, Floating Dragon Island did not only have criminals, but also some residents, workers, and a ruler security force called the Dragon Guards. There were all kinds of people there, but no matter who they were, they had to pay taxes to the ruler. No one dared to break the rules, which represented their respect for the ruler. Floating Dragon Island was a typical low-security area where violence was allowed. As long as the residents, workers, and houses were not destroyed, the Dragon Guards did not care about outsiders killing each other at all. The atmosphere here was ostentatious, wanton, and barbaric. The city was not organized in a proper manner and was scattered all over the place. There was no sun or moon in the sky, and only the lights of the city illuminated the floating island. It was filled with a mixture of darkness and magnificence, as if it was a place for a grand gathering. It was a riot of colors, like a glass of red and black liquor. The villains liked this place not only because it was a neutral supply ground, but also because of the rules there. As long as they did not cross the bottom line of the Dragon Guards, they could use violence to their heart's content. In this place, killing and being killed did not seem to be a big deal. Han Zhao's sudden outburst caused a chain reaction. The sound of machinery clacking could be heard, and all the villains on the street raised their guns and aimed at him. Their faces were ferocious, and they were ready to swarm him at any moment. At this time, the people of the three large mercenary groups drew their weapons and surrounded Han Zhao without showing any weakness. They supported him and protected their companions. The villains who raised their guns hesitated. They put away their weapons and backed away unwillingly. Other than not wanting to provoke the three large mercenary groups, the Dragon Guards were about to appear if the fight was too intense. Under the ferocious gazes of the villains from all directions, the mercenary team of several hundred people walked past this street. Only then did they put away their weapons and continue forward with calm expressions. No one expressed their opinions about the disturbance just now, as if they had just done something that couldn't be more normal. Goa glanced at Han Zhao and did not blame him for his sudden action at all. All the mercenaries supported them, and they acted as if nothing had happened, forming a tacit understanding that did not require any explanation. Not to mention Haluz, even the players were very surprised. In this place, keeping a low profile is useless. You have to show your claws and fangs to intimidate potential enemies. The mercenary industry also has a hidden tacit understanding. Mercenaries participating in the same mission are all reliable teammates. As long as you don't cause too much trouble, everyone will advance and retreat with you. Your business is my business, Han Zhao said. Moreover, it's common to kill criminals here. It's a good opportunity to show our toughness. No one will think twice about it. Han Zhao directly skipped the steps of "what are you looking at?" and "so what if I'm looking at you?" He immediately went up and slashed her peach blossoms with a single slash. Because in this place, he tried his best not to talk. Haluz finally understood that Han Zhao was making the best use of everything. Now that they were moving together with the three mercenary groups, they had the advantage in numbers and were using this opportunity to show off their might. This silent, tacit understanding instantly drew the players closer to the mercenaries. Deep into the city area of Floating Dragon Island, there were much fewer criminals on the streets. Based on the customer's image that Han Zhao had predicted, they locked onto the identity of the other party, Horlade, the owner of a local slave market. He was also a subordinate of one of the direct subordinates of the Floating Dragon Island Master, managing part of the business. This is troublesome. The other party is a subordinate of the Floating Dragon Island Master. If we rob his slaves, we will offend him. On the streets, the leaders of the mercenary groups gathered together to discuss. Ring, Blades, and Purple Gold gave Han Zhao enough attention, and the four of them discussed the action plan together. The current situation was a headache. Although the three mercenary groups were not afraid of the criminals here because of their background, they did not dare to offend the Floating Dragon Island Master. "We can't anger the people of Floating Dragon Island, or we will be dead for sure. We need to think of a plan," the leader of Blades, Porter, said calmly. Beside him, Serene, the leader of Purple Gold, pondered and said, "If Horlade has already bought the silvers, we can't take them back by force. The best way is to snatch the captives before Horlade pays. Since we know the customer, we can wait for the scavengers to come, set up an ambush, and snatch the captives on the way. This way, we won't have a direct conflict with Horlade. Then, we need to first confirm if Horlade has received goods," Goa said. "As long as he hasn't bought the captives yet, this plan will work. We have to contact him, but if we talk as mercenaries, he will definitely be wary. A buyer doesn't want to see someone coveting what he wants, so he might find trouble with the Dragon Guards." There was a prerequisite for waiting, which was that Han Zhao's prediction was reliable. Since there were not many clues, they could only choose to trust him. Anyway, if the information was wrong, Han Zhao would not be able to escape responsibility. With someone taking the blame, the three leaders did not panic. Han Zhao volunteered. "I have a lot of experience, so I can pretend to be a buyer and test him." The three leaders felt that it was a good idea and came up with a simple plan. Han Xiao put on the simulation mask, took off his mechanical suit, and put on an outfit. He looked like a galactic captain belonging to the middle class. This kind of customer was very common. The slave market had a different kind of scenery. At least it was connected to the galaxy, and it was not dirty or messy. Instead, it was luxurious and exquisite. There were many written information about slaves for people to choose from. Floating Dragon Island itself had a slave middleman who bought slaves from scavengers and sold them to big customers. "I want to buy some slaves." As soon as he entered the market, Han Xiao expressed his intentions and pretended to be a normal customer. A fierce-looking worker greeted him with a smile and introduced him to the slaves of different races. There were many different kinds of slaves. After listening for a while, Han Xiao pretended to be dissatisfied and said, "I don't want those bulky, deformed ones, nor do I want those cheap, low-level slaves. I want to see the rare breeds you have here. Don't you have any good products here?" This time, a short and skinny guy walked over from the side. He was wearing luxurious clothes and had many luxurious accessories on his fingers and neck. He smiled and said, Of course I have good things here." "Who are you?" Han Xiao asked. "Horlade, the manager of this slave market. Trust me, the things here will definitely meet your requirements." Horlade did not doubt him and was very enthusiastic toward the customer. Han Xiao sized him up and nodded. Seeing Horlade's hand gesture to follow him, he followed. The two of them took the elevator down to the ground floor. After the door opened, there was a winding white corridor. There was a pure white alloy door at every distance in the corridor, and there was a window on the door. Walking forward, Han Xiao realized that behind the door was a single cell. It was white inside, very clean, and different creatures were locked inside. "Please allow me to introduce you to these high-quality slaves," Horlade said with a confident smile. Han Xiao nodded occasionally and observed the slaves in each cell. Most of them were numb, and some were scratching the wall angrily. Many of them were supers. The slaves here were more expensive and rare. Soon, they reached the end of the corridor. There were almost 100 cells without any silvers. Horlade stopped the introduction and asked, "Who do you like?" Han Xiao coughed and pretended to ask, "Are there any other goods?" "Haha, looks like you're a picky customer. I like challenges." Horlade laughed exaggeratedly and snapped his fingers. "There's one last good thing. She can definitely meet your requirements." The wall at the end opened, revealing a new space with a new cell inside. Seeing this, Han Xiao was relieved. There was only one cell, so it did not seem to be a silver. The captives had not arrived at Floating Dragon Island yet. He walked forward and looked at the window curiously. Suddenly, he stopped breathing. It was a completely subconscious reaction. There was a woman locked inside, and her beauty was unbelievable. From a human's point of view, this was an almost perfect face. Han Technician was stunned at first sight. This woman looked very young. She had long hair wrapped in blurry stardust. Her temperament was very fairy-like. Her appearance was that of a normal galaxy human. She was wearing heavy alloy shackles all over her body. These shackles were specially made for supers. The material used could slow down energy to a certain extent, making it difficult to mobilize, thus reducing the explosive power of supers. She was wearing a self-destruct collar on her neck. Any movement would blow her head up. However, this woman was very calm, different from the other slaves. She was neither numb nor angry. She sat in the corner with her eyes closed, very relaxed, and did not care about her situation at all. Just as Han Xiao was observing her, this woman suddenly opened her eyes. A pair of beautiful eyes that seemed to contain the sea and the stars suddenly appeared in Han Xiao's eyes. She stared at the single-sided window of the cell as if she knew that someone was looking at her outside. She seems to be a very powerful super. Han Xiao thought to himself and regained his calmness. Being stunned was purely a subconscious reaction at first sight, but he quickly shook off this emotion. He took a few more looks and realized that he did not know this woman. Just as he was about to move his eyes away, a new mission suddenly appeared on the interface. Clearly, the trigger was this woman. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.